Are you doing Saturday
Boys.
debates? Oh, hey, all right.
Next Saturday, yeah. Hey, what's up, buddy?
I heard you've been fighting with Hutch lately.
Nope. I love Hutch.
You heard wrong.
Really?
We're having fights, but they're good fights. They're important fights, I think.
No, I don't think you hate him or anything.
I do
You
actually
just
hate
disagree
him.
with him.
Just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think there are good fights, and I think there are bad fights. I think that, like, fighting over, like, whether we want to be socialist or fascist, I think is probably not a good fight. But I think fighting over, like, strategy forward for what message should be for Democrats, I think that's a good fight. I think it's a worthy fight.
Sure. It's a good conversation.
Okay. Walk me through how a budget is made and passed in Congress. Go.
Well, I'm not an expert, but I mean, it normally starts in the House,
Uh-huh.
and the appropriation committees come up with something, obviously working with the White House
Uh-huh.
at the same time. Then it goes to the Senate, and they pass it. I mean, you're talking about like the annual budget?
Yeah. What is a continuing resolution? Oh,
Continuing
wait,
resolution
that
is
budget
an
that you just talked about, that budget needs to be,
Yeah.
the budget bill, that needs to be 60 votes in the Senate, right? Filibuster proof?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then a continuing resolution is,
An extension of the previous budget because you weren't able to come up with a new one in time.
okay, but that previous budget is just going to keep things funded at, like, current levels, so nothing will shut down, but, like, it should be going
Correct.
up or something, or?
Well, technically, it's considered like a cut because if you keep spending levels at the previous year's level, then that's not going to rise to the,
Inflation.
That's not going to deal with inflation.
That's what I'm going to say. So it
yeah.
should go up. So it's kind of like a cut, but it keeps things funded at current
Yep.
levels, basically. If I pass a bill, let's say that I pass a bill for $100 billion in green new energy investment, does that $100 billion, does that have to be, like, allocated during the next congressional budget bill, or is it, like, automatically there as a result of passing that bill, or does that make sense?
So
what I'm
you're
asking?
talking
Yeah.
about it's part of the budget that they agreed on?
Oh, no. Let's say that I passed a totally different bill, and it's called the Green Energy
Oh, okay.
Investment Act. And this, I make $100 billion for the U.S. government to invest in solar panels. Okay, if I were to make that bill and then it passes both halves of Congress, is that not at all funded until the next, like, funding bill is passed, or is it automatically funded because I passed that bill?
I don't think they have anything to do with each other. It's totally separate.
It's totally separate. Okay. So then when I pass a bill that would mandate like $100 billion in funding, that's just something that when Congress goes to make their funding bill, they have to do? And you would hope they would do it?
I don't think it's not included. It's something totally separate. So like we passed $1 trillion for infrastructure and has nothing to do with the budget. It's just we agreed to spend that much money.
Oh, okay. So then that money can't be fought about later on when it comes
It
time to
could be
do it?
rescinded. It could be pulled back by a future administration, like what Trump did with his One Big Beautiful Bill, pulled back some of the money from the Inflation Reduction Act. So you can like fight over that and go back and forth between administrations.
Can you explain to me, how do you claw back money?
It hasn't been spent yet. So a lot of these bills unfold over years, a decade sometimes. And if the money hasn't been spent yet, you could claw it back through new legislation.
Could that new legislation just simply be the next funding bill, or does that need to be like a new bill to rescind the prior bill?
It could be included in the budget bill, sure. Doesn't have
wait.
to be a separate bill.
I'm sorry. When you say included in the budget bill, what I mean more specifically is, can it just be included in the budget, or would this have to be like a separate, like, pork or line item or something to rescind it? So, like, for instance, I think that Biden, I don't know if it was part of the IRA or another bill, he got, there was supposed to be funding for 80,000 new IRS agents, right?
Yep.
My understanding is that basically got taken out somewhere.
Yes, during the debt ceiling fight, he gave back like I don't remember 10 billion or something. He agreed to that in order to get the Republicans on board for raising the debt ceiling.
Do you remember where that? So how did he lose that 10 billion? Was that part of a new bill, or was that like a rider or an add-on to the
Yes.
spending bill, or was it?
It would have been, I assume, it would have been language included in the debt ceiling increase bill.
Okay.
Because that was a piece of legislation they had to agree on to pass. And so I assume the language is in there that fund, that pool of money was reduced by X amount.
Okay.
Which, by the way, the IRS agents, it's not like 80,000 IRS agents. It was actually money to fund future staff, fill holes. It wasn't like hiring a little army to go out and
To go after the small business owners and middle class people of America?
Yeah, it wasn't armed IRS agents knocking on the door of every Dairy Queen owner demanding they pay their 100,000 more in taxes.
Gotcha.
But yeah, you can rescind money through, future things. Like they did it with the One Big Beautiful Bill with the energy provision, some of the green energy stuff that was passed by the Inflation Reduction Act.
And is that,
But
I'm sorry,
think
when I ask if it's part of a bill, what I'm asking is like, is there going to be like an item for how much money you're going to allocate to this, and you just put zero there? Or are you saying they have to attach like an additional piece of legislation to the bill saying we are rescinding the $10 billion allocated?
I don't know that level of detail, but I assume that they're including some clauses in there that are beyond what the budget normally says, just to include that language to deal with that.
Gotcha.
You can put whatever you want in a bill. Like there isn't like the budget bill can only be this. It can include all sorts of stuff if they all agree on it.
Okay. I don't like that. Do you think that's an okay thing, or do you think not? I don't like the
Sure,
way we
why
do a lot
not?
of the funding. Well, I guess so. My issue is that, like, let's say that you fight for. Let's say that you manage to fight for a really big piece of legislation. Let's say it's $100 billion to build windmills, turbines. Sorry. Okay. And then let's say that you do this fight, you do it in front of the American people, Congress fights over it, and eventually Congress passes a bill for $100 billion in turbines, specialized bird-killing turbines. Then let's say that your government comes up soon, you've got to do the next budget, and then let's say that you're in a fight over the budget, all of a sudden, the solar panel fanatics in Congress are like, fuck you, we're going to take away that $100 billion from that last bill that you passed for the solar panel stuff. We're not going to do that anymore. Fuck you. And you're like, okay, well, and then as you're arguing the budget, finally as part of the budget bill, you rescind that $100 billion. I feel like funding the government should be like a separate thing that doesn't have all prior legislation up for debate every single time we do like a budget. I guess I just don't like that.
Well,
Because it feels like it trivializes the
usually-
fight for large, individual, unique pieces of legislation and can cause you to lose a lot of stuff in a very trivial, very quick way that there might have been an extensive public, very visible fight for in the past. Does that make sense?
Sure, but people would argue that this is the only way to get some pet stuff approved by putting it all together in a must-pass bill because it's the budget, and the government will shut down if you don't pass it. So it's like you're extorting the other side in a sense. But I mean, they don't really fight that much over the budget like on these little pet things. But
Okay. What?
this is one of the few must-pass pieces of legislation. You have to pass a budget, otherwise the government shuts down.
Yeah. Well, or you can do continuing resolutions or whatever, right?
Yes, but a continuing resolution is must-pass legislation as well. So you got to pass something
Yeah.
to keep the lights on. Otherwise, their lives get harmed. And though it doesn't feel like that because we had like a 43-day shutdown recently and didn't seem like anyone gave a damn. So they usually have to compromise on something. So they usually don't go too crazy.
Sure. Okay, here, actually, wait, no, because I want to fight with you on this. I super disagree on this, okay? But maybe you can convince me otherwise because I think you're more familiar with these processes, okay? So, in my mind, I guess I want there to be fights over novel legislation. So if somebody wants to pass a healthcare thing, if somebody wants to pass an overall abortion ban or something, I don't know, people want to do these things. I think that these are good fights to have in Congress, in front of the American people, with our lawmakers. I think these are good fights to have. I feel like when it comes to funding the government, I feel like this shouldn't really be that much of a fight. I feel like that should be like a pretty standard, easy thing that when it comes time to do a budget bill, what Congress's job is doing is Congress is tasked with appropriately funding all of the things that the United States government ought to have funded, meaning whatever programs are currently running, that includes all things passed before, et cetera, et cetera. That's it. That the funding bill should not be a time where we're going to have to fight over things that we've previously fought over, because I feel like we just end up in these situations where you're fighting over the same shit over and over and over again until you finally manage to win in some area, rather than like, this is a settled deal, now we're making a budget, now you're funding everything, go. Does that
I
make?
mean, in an ideal world, yeah, but there's very few times where you get to fight. So, like right now, Democrats
Well, no.
aren't funding
When
DHS.
you say there's very few times you get to fight, but the times you fight are when those changes are being proposed.
Well, but proposing something is different from it must pass. And so, like, it can just be ignored if you don't include these kind of fights in a must pass bill. So, for example,
Well, but if it's
DHS
going to
right
be
now is shut
ignored,
down.
if it's going to be ignored, then I would argue then
Yeah.
it should have never been passed in the first place. Like it sounds like a thing that wasn't a legislative priority. Congress already doesn't seem like they do much in terms of passing bills and everything. Like,
Well, that's why people pick these fights with the must pass bills. They're like, they know they can't get anywhere. They can't get it. They can't move it forward any other way. So that's what I was about to bring up the example of DHS being shut down right now over demands of changes to ICE, how they act, right? Like, so do you disagree with the Democrats not funding DHS over ICE not wearing masks and wearing body cams and no more racial profiling? I mean,
Yeah,
would
so
you
like-
disagree with the Democrats on that?
kind of, yeah. I mean, I think we should fight for it because this is the system that we have now. Yeah, but like, I guess I just don't like the fact that the fight is happening as part of the budget. You know, like I feel like it's just an inappropriate area to have the fight. I'm saying inappropriate. I'm sorry, and unideal because if this is how we're doing it, then this is how we're doing it. But like, imagine you're part of like a household and you guys have decided next year we're going to start putting explosive devices on babies. And you're like, okay, fine. Actually, no, we're going to fight over this. And then we're going to say, no, we're not going to do this. And then finally, you all come to an agreement. You're like, no, we're not going to do explosive devices on babies. And then you're fine. But then when you go to make the household for the budget next year, you know, they've got you in a gridlock because you really need to buy your insulin. And the guys that know you need your insulin are like, okay, that's fine. You can go ahead and get your insulin, but we want $50 million for putting explosive devices on babies. It's like, well, fuck, we already had that fight. But now we're reintroducing this fight because every time we're going to do a funding bill, we have to reintroduce every legislative fight we've ever had. It just seems like not a good forum. And I feel like how many of these fucking continuing resolutions, everything we had to do, I feel like we've had so much trouble funding the government lately. It feels like this has not been a very effective process for figuring stuff out. Like it's causing more headaches than not.
We had like Nancy Pelosi and Biden's budget extended for over a year. And so like those are their priorities that got passed, you know, and so that upsets a lot of people. But it's due to the dysfunction of Congress that these sort of policy fights are happening in the budget bills because they're the rare must-pass bill. So it's the opportunity to draw a line in the sand and say, I'm not going to fund this
I don't disagree
agency.
with what you're saying. You're giving me like as the system is, right? So like I'm just saying like what I wish the system would be. I don't disagree with you that like we have to fight here because it's the only time we fight. I guess I just don't like that. If I was to make a big change, it would be that if you want new legislative agendas or whatever, you're going to have to really pass a bill for it. You're not allowed to just do you're not allowed to fight for this over the budget stuff. So it would force people to hopefully depoliticize the budget stuff a little bit. I don't know. Or a lot of it. Really, I don't think passing a budget should be that political. I don't know if that's a retarded statement or not. I feel like you should just fund whatever legislative initiatives to pass Congress and that's it. It'd just be figuring out like whatever the funding mechanisms need to look like and that's it. And then I guess that's my take on it. But
I agree. In a perfect world, obviously, we would just deal with keeping the lights on and the government funded. But Congress is so dysfunctional; they can't move anything forward unless it's must pass and it has a deadline, and the budget falls in that category.
are you okay with the debt ceiling, or do you think that should go?
I think they should get rid of that. It's just a tool that the Republicans use to extract concessions from the Democrats. So we should totally get rid of that.
I'm so stupid. Okay, but then
But
could I not just use the same arguments for the debt ceiling as you just used for the budget? Like I'll say, well, the debt ceiling is the only time you can get important legislative agendas passed because that is when you're forcing people to, because you have to do something about the debt, right? If I use all the same arguments there, what would your defense be of the debt ceiling?
Well, the debt ceiling isn't something you should play with because we can crash a whole world economy and we can really cause some damage. So the fact that the Republicans even play around with that is really disgusting. So that shouldn't even be something we debate. Obviously, we can live with the government shutting down, but the debt ceiling is us not paying our debts and our credit rating going down, and that's very bad.
But I mean,
That would be my
arguably
argument.
funding the government is similar, right? Like let's say that like
Similar,
Let's say the
not as
Republicans were
damaging,
right
though.
about how there really were mass illegal immigrants, killing everybody and doing all these horrible things, and now ICE or DHS goes unfunded because of a bill lapsing. Theoretically, like what if a major terror attack happened during a lapse of funding or something?
That's what they're setting up right now, by the way.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is begging for 9/11 2.0 so he can go, look, the Democrats didn't fund DHS over their stupid demands, and a sleeper cell that snuck in during Biden's administration and his porous southern border has now hurt you, and it's all the Democrats' fault. It has nothing to do with me.
Sure.
But that's a side note. But yeah, I mean, all sorts of games. Look, we don't have a great system here, okay? I'll be the first to admit that. And the budget reconciliation process is even worse.
Walk me through
You know,
that.
well, that you have to focus on spending or taxation or something. So you can't do like immigration policy or abortion, but boy, you can do some pretty big spending there, and you don't need a single person from the other side, which is totally against the way our system is designed right now.
For the budget that you passed with the
whole-
budget reconciliation, is that a whole ass new budget that is just a simple majority, or is that like a continuing resolution with some changes, or?
It's like in addition to the existing budget, you're reconciling the existing budget, and you just need a majority for that.
Okay, so it would allow you to basically keep the government funded by by amending. What are you amending, like the last budget, or?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
And you're adding all this new stuff on top of it. But what I wanted to say
Interesting.
about the debt ceiling fight is I do think the Democrats need to start talking about the debt. I don't think it's a big deal, but to a lot of Americans it is, because they think about it like credit card debt. And so
Yeah.
I don't think we should cede the argument to the right and just be like, oh, who cares about the debt? It's not a big deal. The right is getting everybody fired up about it as now it reaches $1 trillion in interest payments. And so we should talk about it. We should own the debate. We should be involved in that, talking about how we want to pay it down or deal with it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Especially, I do think there's probably a point at which the debt becomes a big deal, and the Republicans feel like they're hurtling us in that direction. If there were any big,
Well, they're winning the narrative on that. They're convincing people that we don't give a shit and we're outspent. We're just burning money like we don't care, and they're the only ones who care about it, even though that's the exact.
that's
they're the
been
ones that are actually doing it.
somehow over the past 30 years, I don't know why or how. I don't know if you saw my conversation with Tom Bilyeu, but like, if you ever ask conservatives about this, like why, like because some of these crypto bros or finance people were like, well, I think the debt is the biggest issue ever. And I was like, okay, you can think that, fine, but then you should vote a Democrat, right? But it feels like people, I don't know how they've won the narrative so hard on that when the Republicans have destroyed our debt so much between the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act and all the foreign wars, and now a new one maybe that we're getting involved in. It's unbelievable to me. I don't know how they continued to win on that talking point.
Because we don't talk about it, and like you said, it's not a big deal. I think we outgrow the debt. Like, if you have 10 grand in debt and you only make 50K, that's gonna hold you back. But if you get a job for 100K, it's like, oh, okay, my 10 grand in debt's not that big of a deal anymore. So I think we just outgrow it.
I agree. That's probably
maybe we could pay them.
possible, but right now we're not. That's not the course we've put ourselves on, or the Republicans have put us on. So, but I don't disagree that might be a way out of it. But we'd probably still have to curb our spending at least a little bit. Would be my guess, because we're not going to grow so much that we're going to be able to outrun all of that. But
Right. I just don't want to give up the narrative to the Republicans, and we're not even trying. So hopefully we start leaning into that a little more.
yeah, I would agree with that 100%. Yeah, especially with all the insane spending recently over the Iran war and everything. Yeah,
Have you been following the politics of that?
lightly. What do you mean in particular?
Just how it's going for Trump. I mean, Trump is out there saying Iran stole a tomahawk and fired it against an elementary school. Just crazy shit like that.
Business as usual, you mean? Yeah. He is always saying just the most. The problem is that, like, so much of America is so stupid and that they don't understand, like, what's being said sometimes, like how ridiculously crazy things would have to be for a thing to be said. And Trump is just able to expose so much of this in the United States because, the idea that that one, they're shooting cruise missiles, and then two, that that they're shooting cruise missiles, which the whole point of these are to be highly precise weapons at their own schools. It's just such a stupid statement on so many different levels. I will never be able to take a Republican seriously again about anything. Like, you want to talk about, like, this is a point that I fight on, and it's not popular. I don't even think my own audience thinks that it's a good fight, but I don't care. I will always argue that Trump is dumber than Biden, that whatever you want to make about senility for Biden, like, show me examples of Biden being senile outside of that one bad debate performance, and I can give you 10 examples of Trump being worse. And nobody has ever won that fight before with me. We're like, well, because, like, the only way, no, you can't win that fight. Trump sounds like a fucking retard, literally, with every single thing he talks about, and it's unbelievable to me. Yeah, that statement is crazy. But there's like a statement like that every day. So yeah, sorry, don't get me riled up on that. Fuck you.
Yeah.
I still don't know why. Wait, can you tell me? I'm sorry, I've been asking people this because I actually don't know. Maybe I just don't follow enough American politics. Why are we at war with Iran again?
Well, the reason keeps shifting.
But they keep saying it
But-
doesn't.
Yeah. Well, originally it was for regime change, and because they've been threatening us for 47 years. That's the talking point that was given out as a
seen
firmware
that.
update. 47 years, 200 plus Americans killed by this murderous regime, and they'll threaten us no more. But the problem is, I thought we obliterated their nuclear program in June of last year. I guess that didn't work out. So why should we believe Trump's going to remove the threat this time? But now he's shifted the goalpost to say, well, the goal is to destroy their Navy. I never heard about Iran's Navy being a threat to anybody, but I guess the Navy was the biggest problem.
Okay.
And eliminating the missile threat. But I don't know, man. This is not going well. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. 20% of the world's oil supply is caught in the Persian Gulf, can't move. Doesn't matter if we release oil from the reserves, we can't make up for that. So I don't know where this is going, but it's not looking pretty.
Yeah. Okay.
Hello. What's going on?
Hi, what's up, North? Wait, what do you call yourself?
North. You put like North is live. Like
Well, because I don't know
you
who the
put
fuck
whole
North is,
thing
and your
in there.
YouTube channel is North is Live, so I don't fucking know. What do you want me to say? Okay.
It's like at North is live, but like you don't do like the whole thing.
well, whose
just
fault
North.
is that? Sounds like your fault, Logup.
It's my fault. You're right. It is my fault. Everything's my fault. Blame
okay.
the Republican.
Based.
Thank you.
All right, I have I got a scheduled talk with North here. So, do you have anything else, Myra, that you want to drop on us? Any wisdom or anything else you want to impart on us, or?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'll
I meant
come
you can
back
also
another time.
you can hang out for this if you want. I'm not kicking you out. I'm just saying I've talking with this guy, but
No. If you guys have a scheduled talk, it's all good.
All right. Well, hey, I love you, buddy.
All right, bro.
Stay safe. Be careful. And yeah.
Yep. Later.
What's going on?
Just watching my country collapse.
Sounds like a fun time.
Yeah.
So I four specific topics I specifically DM'd you about. Do you want me to just start, I guess?
Yeah.
Or,
Run it down.
Or do we...
First of all,
Okay.
introduce yourself.
Okay, yeah. Hello, I'm North. YouTube.com/NorthIsLife. Gotta get that shill in. I'm a Never Trump Republican. I'm willing to work with the Democratic Party because I think that the current MAGA movement is trying to destroy our Constitution and destroy our republic. And want you guys to beat the illiberalism out of the Republican Party so that we can return to some sort of normalcy.
Wow.
That is sort of my position, as it were.
Okay. And then run them down. What do you got for us?
Okay, so 4 specific things. What does it mean to erode/reinforce a liberal institution? What is a deterrence and how do you create it? Possible prescriptions for fixing the system. And then the way that you currently use your rhetoric in your community and how that's kind of radicalizing people.
Okay.
So I think there's 2 things that we kind of have to agree on before we 2 or 3 things we have to agree on before moving forward. The first one is that our overall goal is to return to a liberal democratic framework, like going back to where people operate in the system in a good faith manner. Can we agree on
Correct.
that?
I agree with that. The second thing, the way you phrase that, yeah.
Okay. And then
When I say
the
that for that
hypothetical
second
scenario.
the reason why I say the second way you phrase it is because I don't think it's enough to just return. We need to like return. Returning can't be taking 5 steps back. Returning needs to be like taking 5 steps back and then going down a new pathway. So not just like resetting the clock, but like trying to change the way that we're that's what I mean. Yeah. Which I think is what you meant. Yeah, just clarifying. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the second thing that we have to agree on is that the hypothetical scenario that everyone is giving is a Democrat win in 28, generally involving a majority in like the Senate and the House. So with these two, and then what was it? One more thing. We agree that a use of force is needed to create a deterrence for bad actors in the future.
What do you mean by use of force?
As in, like, there's some sort of negative outcome for
Yes.
the
Okay.
people that are using like illiberal actions in our government currently. Yes. So these are sort of the 3 things that we agree on, and now what is generally disagreed with between the Connor and the Hutch conversations is how is that the negative outcomes achieved? Is it through quote unquote Hunter Bidening them, or is it through using existing codified law in order to punish these people? Would you agree that that's sort of the disagreement happening right now?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Okay, so let's get into what it means to erode / reinforce a liberal institution. So this is what the general vibe that I've gotten from your live streams. You would say that you can temporarily divert from liberalism and generally obeying the Constitution in good faith in order to save the Constitution, in order to save liberalism in the future, I guess.
Sure. Yes.
Okay. You ever watch Code Geass before?
Yeah, that's my example, motherfucker. But go ahead. I'm not gonna get stabbed though. But go ahead.
Okay. In Code Geass, there's a quote in there, in which they ask Lelouch, if you use evil to destroy evil, does evil remain? And they kind of point out obnoxiously that it's a paradox, because if you use evil to destroy evil,
Yeah.
evil
Classic
will remain
anime tropes. A
in
lot
the
of
end.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm kind of taking sort of the same logic, in which if you want to create a future system in which everyone adheres to liberalism and like operating within good faith with our government, you have to be able to punish everyone involved in illiberalism, and you cannot selectively punish just the other side or the ones who started it first. Otherwise, you're creating a like a reinforcement mechanism of that being the most effective way to institute like change in our government.
I think I disagree with what you
that'll be
just
my-
said. Can you restate that?
So,
Or I can state it for you.
MAGA is-
It sounds like you're saying that like
or
go ahead. Yeah, go.
no, you go ahead. You restate
That
it.
sounds like
and
what
I'll-
you're saying is
I'll correct
you cannot utilize, or we'll say illiberal, and hopefully Hutch isn't coming. You cannot utilize illiberal actions against one other side simply because the other side acted first. Otherwise, it would be a violation of the system.
You cannot selectively punishment and expect to go back to a liberal system.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess. Is what
Okay,
I'm saying.
sure.
It
Okay.
needs to be universally punished, no matter if it's on your side or if it's on the other side.
Okay, so I'm going to challenge this a little bit. We can speak around this and make you feel okay. One issue that I have with a lot of
Okay.
these types of conversations, and to be fair, this actually comes up a lot, even in ordinary behavior, is I don't know how you would describe this in moral philosophy or whatever, but I think fundamentally the second actor is not the same as the first actor. So, for instance, we would say we understand this intuitively when it comes to like the concept of self-defense, right? If somebody takes out a gun and shoots somebody, and then he's going to go shoot somebody else, and then you go to shoot that guy, nobody would ever say, if you're trying to stop people from shooting people, you can't shoot him, because now you've just created more shooting, and you're never going to stop people from shooting people. right? Well, they would say, well, hold on. The reason why the second guy is shooting, paradoxically, is because he wants there to be less shooting. Does that make sense? What I said. You don't have to agree with my full thing, but just are you following that so far?
I understand the analogy you're trying to make. I would disagree with it.
That's fine. Okay, we can get to the disagreement. But
Okay.
so I think that when it comes to like shooting, I think that there's like two different things we could talk about. We could talk about like the actual physical, like the actual act of shooting, right? And I would draw a parallel to that to like the formal organization of a liberal democracy, like the system. But then we can talk more abstractly to an environment of shooting. And I would abstractly refer to that as like the concept or the principles of liberalism. That there might be times when we might have to unfortunately violate the norm of no shooting, but it's because ultimately we really are trying to enforce the ideology of the concept of no shooting, much the same that like there might be times we have to step outside the formal structure of liberalism in the hopes of enforcing the ideals of liberalism, and that whether or not that action is good or bad. Now you might, even looking at all of that, you might agree with my whole framework. I don't see you do, but you might agree with my whole framework and you say, I understand everything you're saying. I still disagree that that's possible. That's fine. But fundamentally, the second actor here who's trying to adhere to the concept of liberalism, but is working outside of liberalism, those actions are fundamentally different than the person who is working outside of liberalism, attacking the concept of liberalism. Does that make sense?
Okay, yes, I can say that the intent given between the two is definitely different, and you can create
Sure.
a differentiation between those.
Okay.
But the outcome that is achieved is not one in which we return into someone where there is no shooting, and we can get into this more if you
Okay.
want.
Gotcha. I disagree with you there, but we know where our disagreement is. That's fine. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So, the analogy of like, so you're going to be using a gun in self-defense in order to prevent someone from shooting you. That I don't think we would necessarily disagree with that, but it's more of like let's take the example of like war, for example, or like a civil war. In war or a civil war, you have to inherently use illiberal tactics in order to defeat your enemy, right? Like no one would say like, oh, why can't we just like vote away the Japanese after they attacked Pearl Harbor? Like you inherently have to use some sort of force.
Yeah, we would prefer otherwise to
impose-
never, ever, ever have to use, right? In an ideal world, we are never, ever going to war, blowing people up, blowing ships up, whatever, right?
In an ideal world, yes.
Yeah.
But the scenario that we're presented with, that being a Gavin Newsom win in 28, it's not so much as you're using your gun in self-defense. It's more like someone broke into your house, you tied him up, and now you're deciding whether you want to execute him or not, and then call that self-defense. That would be more of a proper analogy, in my opinion.
So, what if it's not tie them up and execute them? What if it's whip their ass? And the reason I say whip their ass is because we're not actually eliminating the entirety of all political opposition in the United States, but we would do some damage to it such that it would disincentivize all that future behavior. The reason I don't like using the kill analogy...
Yeah, but I'm saying that instead of beating their ass, you just call the cops, and then you have the system handle it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's unfortunately we're begging. Like, if I felt like this was a thing that the system could handle, then I mean, we would still be speaking within the system, right?
Sure, but then if you feel like this is something that the system would handle, obviously we want to be operating in a society in which we don't take these actions into our own hands, and we have more of a system in order to do good. So in order to, if we feel like the system is inadequate or needs change, then our effort should be on fixing the system in the future. Otherwise, we have a society in which, in order to resolve our problems, we're just beating each other up.
Yep, I agree.
In order to like
Can
create
I-
deterrences.
Okay, can you put a pin on this here, and then I want to back up to another thing that I think is kind of important for us to resolve. Do you think that there's any system of... Wait, first of all, can I ask, what's your background? Are you like a college student or...
I'm just a random college student.
Okay. Gotcha.
I'm a first year community college, going to go into political science.
Okay.
So,
Gotcha, cool. Just curious.
I'm a pilot, if that helps.
Yeah, no. edgy joke. Sorry. So here's a question. Do you think that you can devise any system of rules or devise any system? Yeah, we'll just say that. Can you devise any system of rules that will be impervious to bad faith actors? It's people that are continually trying to break said system of rules.
In the moment in which the bad faith actors are actively in power, no, I believe that is impossible, and I think you would agree with that.
Yeah, but then my next question is going to be, can't we just run that?
Well, sorry. Sorry. Let me back up.
Yeah.
There is a stipulation to that.
Go ahead.
Like, we can create rules and systems to prevent bad faith actors from happening, but in an ideal world, we want our executive to be able to operate with some degree of freedom in order to execute the power or to protect America, ideally.
Sure. Not necessarily getting to executive or anything like that. Just basic questions on rules, I guess. On is it possible to create a rule system that can survive bad faith actors? And when I say
while they're currently in power, then no.
Okay. So I would argue that even when they're not in power, I think that that's impossible. And when I say bad faith actor, what I'm referring to specifically is a person who is trying to circumvent the rules in a way that still accomplishes what the rules were trying to prevent. So an example of this might be in Monopoly. You land on a property and a person has 4 houses on the property. But when you look at the board, one of the houses is actually a little bit scooted off. Have you ever played Monopoly before?
I've played Monopoly before.
Yeah, sometimes when you're hopping pieces around the board, things get scooted around the board. And so you're oh, actually, I'm only going to pay the rent for 3 houses because one of those houses was kind of it was knocked off a little bit, right? And I mean, by the letter of the rules and the laws or whatever, I guess I would have to read the exact wording in the Monopoly rulebook. But it's not unfathomable to me that the wording could be such that you could get away with that. If it's 3 houses placed on a property, it's it's not placed on it, is it? Because it's a little bit off, right? I don't think that my contention is, this actually might be fundamental and important this might be where our foundational disagreements are. I don't think you can create any system of rules that is impervious to people that aren't engaging in good faith with your rule set.
I think you can. And I think this is the fundamental disagreement.
Yes.
You maintain that you can use some sort of force after the fact in order to create a deterrent to prevent bad faith actors from doing things in the future.
Yep. And then also just real quick,
where's the disconnect?
Wait, real quick, just so I can also have ultra crystal clarity on that term. A bad faith actor is somebody, again, who's trying to achieve the outcome of breaking a rule without breaking a rule. Bad faith actors are not people who break the rules. So for instance, let's say somebody knew for some reason that 2 states didn't have an extradition agreement or something with each other, and they got an AR-15 and they sniped and killed their neighbor from across state lines, knowing that for some really weird reason they'd never be held accountable for it, even though all of us agree that murder is bad, we don't want people murdering. That would be a bad faith actor. Somebody just murdering somebody would not be a bad faith actor. That's just a bad person who's breaking the rules. Okay? Just to understand my distinction there. When I say bad faith actor, I'm not talking about people who are breaking rules. I'm talking about people who are trying to effect the outcome of breaking a rule without breaking the rule. Does that make sense?
Yes, I would agree with that.
Okay,
I wrote down a definition of what it means to erode an institution. So usually an institution has a mission statement. So if you abuse an institution in a way that it wasn't originally defined or created for, then that might be considered eroding an institution or using powers that were usually not given to an institution. Or maybe even failing to use those powers when you're supposed to.
Sure.
That would be. Would you agree to this definition of these being erosions of institutions? Or
it could be, yeah. These could be some examples, yeah.
Okay. So I agree on your definition on bad faith actors. I just don't see the connection between the use of force, which we agree on, creating a deterrence, and why that use of force cannot be codified in law. Is the limitation that the law applies like the narrowness that prevents it from being effective, or what exactly makes
because my issue is that
in law the use of force ineffective?
Because you're trying to codify something in law where you're trying to effect some outcome, but the thing that you're trying to codify into law is being used against people who already know what the law is, who are trying to circumvent those outcomes. So in the future, they're just going to find more ways to try to circumvent whatever law you pass.
Yes, I would agree that they would do that, and that's how it's been for the history of law in like all of human history.
I would disagree
But
with that.
That's the point of the republic. Is we do not. That's a good thing about having a liberal democratic system is that it's not stagnant. It is able to change. For
Yeah,
the
but I
future
would
in order
disagree.
to
I don't
account
think
for
that
these new things.
The law system, yeah, it's supposed to account for new things, like new laws that you might need to pass for new technologies or new environments, whatever. But I don't think it was there to try to patch itself against bad faith actors.
No, it has, and we've done this before in history, and our republic didn't implode because we didn't punish people retroactively for them operating in the system in bad faith. Are you familiar with the spoils system in U.S. history?
No. Does that have to do with Game of Thrones spoils? No, I'm just kidding. Something to do with looting ships or battlefields or
I've never watched
something?
Game of
No, what is
Thrones,
it?
so- Okay, so in U.S. history, we had this thing called the spoils system. So basically, we've always been a two-party system. Whenever one party would come to power, they would basically fire everyone involved in the opposite party. And then whenever the reverse would come around, the opposite party would just fire everyone who was in the opposition party, and they'd hire all their friends. Basically, it was massive political corruption. And this ended in like the 1870s with the civil service reform acts, I guess. And basically, it gave more rights to people working within the government, so they couldn't be like arbitrarily fired just because they were associated with a previous administration. I would argue that this was people operating with our system in a bad faith manner, and we're able to reform the system for the future, and our republic didn't implode because there was no retroactive punishment.
Can you give me an example of like how do you feel like that's acting in bad faith? That kind of just sounds normal to me. Like when a new administration comes in, you're swapping a fuck ton of civil servants. It seems like it was. My guess is at one point in time, the government was small enough that maybe this wasn't as big of a deal. But as the government grew in size more and more, that just wasn't a very realistic way to govern effectively in the future. But I don't see any part of that that's necessarily like bad faith.
Like you would say that it wouldn't be expressly illegal, but it was not like healthy for the republic, and it wasn't, I guess, necessarily like what the founders intended when it came to how our government was supposed to operate.
I agree that
I
it
would
might
argue
not
that would
necessarily
be
be
considered
healthy.
bad faith.
I don't think it's healthy for the republic, but I think that's like an appropriate thing to legislate out of, because it's not like the people that were doing that were trying to functionally avoid. Remember the earlier definition I gave for bad faith actor: somebody who's trying to affect some outcome that was supposed to be avoided with some rule in place. And I feel like that was just a thing, maybe again because the federal government was so small or had such limited roles in the very beginning of the country, that was just a rule that we didn't have, that nobody really agreed should even exist, because it was just not a thing. It just wasn't an issue. And then when it became an issue and they started to pass rules to make it so that wouldn't happen, then that no longer became an issue. But I don't see that as being similar to people that are trying in bad faith to circumvent. Like, what rule would you say those people were trying to circumvent other than just like general principles of governance that...
I believe there were like earlier civil service reforms. Like this was a series of acts, and it ended with like this one massive legislation. Basically, they would create the civil service reform, and then people would try to like bypass it with like some new loophole, and then we would eventually keep patching until we were sufficient enough that this wasn't really a problem for the future.
Sure, I guess I don't know those loopholes. I mean, I would say some of those people might have been performing in bad faith, I guess. I'm not necessarily opposed to like closing some loopholes. I don't think that's necessarily bad, especially if they're glaring and obvious ones. But I don't think that a system can survive if you're trying to reform your way out of or patch things against people that they really know the rules and they're really just trying to break them. Or not break them, but they're really trying to go against what the spirit of that rule was, in ways that are stupid. That's not a great way of explaining it. Are you familiar with all like the J6 stuff?
Yes,
sorry,
I'm
okay.
familiar.
Yeah, so like for the electors thing, right? Like their plan was they wanted to break the Electoral Count Act. And because their
Yes.
claim was, well, we think Pence might have a constitutional thing here that he can, enact on because the vice president has the authority, blah, blah, blah. But also, they knew, and I think Eastman said to Rosen, that if that was before the Supreme Court, initially said they'd probably lose 2-7, and then maybe they'd probably lose 0-9. But also it wouldn't matter because Trump would already be president. Like, these are bad faith actors that aren't just like breaking norms or whatever. They're like intentionally, well, I guess here it's bad because I'm saying they're breaking a law actually, but I mean, they're thinking they're adhering to the Constitution.
Yeah, this is literally breaking a law. That
Sure,
I think you could create enforcement mechanisms. So I think I have prescriptions that I want to get into in the
Sure.
future. I don't know if you want to get it into now.
yeah,
but
we
I
can
think
get
one
into
of the
them,
things
but
is the fact that
Well, I was gonna say we can get into them, but like this is pretty foundational because like I'm probably gonna agree with most of the things that you're gonna suggest, or maybe not. We'll see when we get there. I just don't think that they would be effective in deterring future people that are like intentionally trying to circumvent whatever the rules and laws are. But yeah, go ahead.
well, well, there's circumventing like the rules and laws, and there's acting in like a criminal manner. We can differentiate the two, right?
Yeah. But I'm fine. The criminal stuff
yeah.
is fine. Fucking act like a criminal because if you break a law and you're doing a crime, you're gonna get fucked. We have a good system for dealing with people that are being criminals.
Well, I would argue that that's one of the reasons why the Trump administration is able to act so corruptly is because it's not sufficient enough and it needs reform.
Okay.
So basically, like the presidential immunity when it came to official actions, that Supreme Court ruling, that needs to be narrowed way the fuck down. I think in order to create like a more healthy system, and then probably
agree with that
either
100%.
eliminating or reforming like presidential pardons, where like Congress is like able to get rid of specific or maybe all presidential pardons with like a simple majority vote. I think that would make our system a lot more healthy as well.
I agree with both of those. For pardoning, I thought that I feel like it'd be interesting if the president just submits a list at the end of the year. These are the people I want pardoned, and then maybe the Senate or Congress, has to just sign off on it or something. Like I feel like there should generally be a rubber stamp.
No, I think pardons are good for like I think they can be good for doing it beforehand and just being able to undo them after the fact. I don't think that's there's a lot of people that have been discussing and saying that's retroactive punishment by undoing a pardon after it's already been given. I wouldn't think so.
Wait,
again,
why do you think
now
being
I'm
able
thinking about
to wait? You're saying you should be able to undo pardons.
undo pardons? Yes.
Why is that?
That way the president can still have the ability to just like pardon people if they see fit, and you don't need to create it like a partisan fucked Congress issue. If you want to, if there is someone that legitimately like probably should be pardoned for whatever reason, the president could just operate like that. But if they ever operate corruptly, then the Congress can keep them in check.
Why not just have them so that Congress has to approve them?
I mean, you could have it that way as well. It's just my personal opinion. Both of them
Okay.
achieve
Sure.
the same
Okay.
thing, that being that the pardon power is kept in check.
Okay. Sure.
That's more of like a very minor thing.
Sure. Some sort of congressional check on pardon power, I think would be good. I think it's good. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. What else?
What were we talking about before we got to prescriptions?
Your mom.
You
Just
lose
kidding.
my train of thought.
No. It was bad faith actors. Can you make rule systems against bad faith actors? And then I told you to put a pin in it because we were discussing. Were you about to go into reforms you wanted to make?
Well, yes. Well, I have a whole list of reforms, but another thing is what is a deterrence and like how do you create one as well? Like I kind of want to get into the nitty gritty of that.
So for deterrence, for future deterrence, is this for future deterrence?
Yeah, future deterrence basically. Because I think we can argue that if you have a bad faith executive specifically, with like a Congress that are unwilling to check them, there isn't necessarily much you can do to punish them while they're in office. Any like negative action you're going to have for them is going to have to be in the future after they're out of office. So that's why we call it a deterrence, is future fear of punishment or a negative outcome.
Yeah. For like, how would we hold these last people accountable? Or wait, I'm sorry. Wait, I'm sorry. When you say deterrence, you're only talking about going forward, right? You're not talking about the current people in office, right?
Going forward, yes.
Gotcha. I mean, I guess.
Well, and I kind of want to get into that specifically as well. Of do you need to have precedent in order to create proper deterrence? That's like a big thing.
What do you mean by that?
it's a lot of people I've been arguing with in your community that have been making. They basically say you cannot create any proper deterrence unless you have some sort of punishment created, like in the present, even if it's not like codified in law. That they just need to be punished first, and then
Yeah,
you can
well,
create
so
reforms, and then that's how you create the deterrence.
There's like two things going on here, I think. If you're talking in general, you can deter things in a lot of different ways. But with specificity to this current moment, and then, hold on, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. I think deterrence exists for good faith actors is who deterrence exists for. But I'm using good faith. I'm using a very weird definition here. I don't know if it's fair. Like, generally speaking, I don't know how, what we could tease it out. Like, I view criminals to be different than, I view criminals differently than I view bad faith actors. So, like, I would say deterrence works
Sure.
against criminals. So people that are just out there breaking laws, robbing, murdering, whatever. Those people can be deterred with laws and stuff because when they get caught, that's part of, that's part of the game, that's part of what happens. But for bad faith actors, I don't think you can deter them with reform. They have to feel like there's something outside of that that can get them. Otherwise, I feel like those people are undeterrable. So I say that because you said you're arguing with people who are saying, well, you can't deter anybody without doing anything retroactively. But I think more so what's happening is you're trying to set up deterrence for people that are trying to circumvent the rules. However, you just can't do that. But that goes back to, that's why I said we kind of had to go to that other conversation about, like, do we have a fundamental disagreement here? Because I don't think you can deter bad faith actors using reforms. Maybe you can patch it up a little bit, but they're always going to find some wacky loophole or wacky way around it. Yeah.
I think you can create a deterrence with reforms, and even if they're operating in a bad faith actor, I think there's legislation you can create in order to prevent people from operating like this in the future. But yeah, if you want to go back, we can talk about what legislation could be created, or I guess if you can definitionally create a deterrence through reforms. Want to go back to the pen?
Want to go back to the, what did you say? Pen?
The pen.
Oh, the pen. Yeah,
Sorry.
sure. Go for it. Yeah, go.
Okay. Do you have any historical examples that you know of that is feeding into your opinion, or are you kind of like vibing this out when it comes to there can be no reforms created to prevent a bad faith actor from operating?
I think I'm vibing it a little bit, but I think I'm looking at stuff like, unironically, like Nuremberg or whatever. To where...
What do you... people keep talking about Nuremberg, and I feel like people don't understand what Nuremberg was.
Probably
like,
not.
What do you mean when you refer to Nuremberg?
That's very touch and go, so maybe I just don't understand. But my understanding for Nuremberg was that these were historically held trials for the events that had gone on in Nazi Germany, and then people were held to be responsible, such that there were executions and stuff for the activities that they engaged in during kind of like the reign of the Nazi regime, I guess, for things that weren't like, because the Geneva Conventions and everything came after World War II, so I don't know if these were considered, I don't even know.
No, the Geneva Convention was something before.
Was it right before? Was this World War One?
I think it's before World War One was the Geneva Convention, I'm pretty sure. I think it was Crimean War, if I remember correctly. This was
Geneva Convention was
before.
49.
Was it 49?
Yes.
Oh, I thought it was before, but maybe I'm thinking of a different Geneva Convention.
Or I'm sorry, maybe I should be more clear that when you talk about Geneva Convention, there are multiple Geneva Conventions, but I think like the big ones that we rely on today as cornerstones of international law, there are 4 Geneva Conventions.
Oh, or like 49. Yeah,
there were 49. Yeah, there might have been some prior to that. I just don't know. But I guess I don't know 100% what the authority of the Nuremberg trials rested on. I guess I would have to check.
So the authority, this is a discussion during the Nuremberg trials, is what the Nazis try to bring up, was basically, is this justice, or is this basically the power of like the victors being imposed on the losers? And I feel like a lot of people like to classify it as that, which is like the Nazi framing, is that ultimately what created what was right and what was wrong was this is just a show trial. No matter what, these people were going to be found guilty and executed. But a lot of things that people tend to forget is that the Nuremberg trials involved, like, there were set criteria that they were indicted for, and these people weren't just like executed after their crimes were shown. People were found guilty and acquitted. Some people were like 10 years in prison. Some people were completely given away. And of course, yeah, some people were executed. There's the mindset. I feel like a mindset that you have is that these people need to be punished no matter what. That like, if there's law to support it, that's good. But if there's no law, you just still do it anyway. But then I don't think you can necessarily appeal to Nuremberg because that's not what Nuremberg did.
I don't think prior to Nuremberg, was there any example ever
precedent.
of other countries like holding individual actors accountable or responsible in any kind of legal manner for how that country treated its own
this
citizens?
was another discussion about this is the legality of the Nuremberg trials. Arguably, for them being indicted for genocide and actually, I think not genocide. Sorry, being indicted for crimes against humanity. That was like not a thing really based in international law that you could indict someone for. But it was what crimes against peace and then like war crimes. These were things done during the Nuremberg trials that was like already precedent. So like a conspiracy to invade another country. You could argue like, well, you have a peace treaty between the two countries. So if you're conspiring to break that treaty, then you could be like held accountable for that. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying, but when you say you held accountable for that, wasn't that generally the state? I don't think it was generally applied to as applied to individuals.
Well, the Nuremberg trials was specifically putting each head of like the Nazi Reich on trial.
Yeah,
so it was like,
but
like
individuals.
The guy was in
but
charge
I
of
think
the banks,
prior
the guy
to
that
that,
was in charge of like
I don't think there was any
yeah.
precedent for going after individuals in a country, especially especially about treatment of people within their country, and then holding them accountable for crimes like other countries doing that. My understanding is that was unprecedented, but
it was unprecedented in the fact that it succeeded. We tried doing it after World War One, and failed, mainly because we didn't really occupy the country afterward. But like the law that was used as a basis to prosecute them was not fully unprecedented. If you ignore the indictments of crimes against humanity, that was unprecedented, and that was made up just for that trial with like the London Charter and all that.
Sure. Like I'm seeing here, I'm just reading real quick. It looks like apparently there were people that shortly before the German surrender, however, the Freedom Council worked with a clandestine committee of lawyers to elaborate a proposal for a War Crimes Act that included the death penalty. The Prime Minister appointed another committee consisting of civil servants and judges. These two proposals were merged into a subsequent bill. A major point of difference was whether the law would be retroactive to only the 29th of August, 1949, when the Danish government resigned, or all the way back to April 9th, 1940. So, like, I'm pretty sure this is like a kind of a violation of everything. Like, you don't usually have retroactive laws.
For part of it, yeah, I do agree that part of it was retroactive.
Which is not a thing that but that's like illegal, right?
Well, depends what you define as illegal. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you would generally consider it illegal and illiberal too.
Yeah.
But so is this what you specifically wish to emulate in the context of the Nuremberg trial, or?
Well, I don't know. I just bring up Nuremberg as a way that like to broadly punish people. I don't have like the specific legal framework in my brain for it. That was one of the things I was going to do. I'll start working on it, I guess, as ideas for like how you would do this. The reason why I just haven't contended with this much is because I feel like if you want to get creative, like I feel like, but I think that we just have some fundamental disagreements here. I think that my earlier contention was that if you don't want to play in good faith, that you can always find ways around everything. This includes my side too. So if we decide that we want to go like hard on this, then figuring out like however the fuck we want to do it, like it would be trivially easy to do within like the letter of the law. So like as an example, this was this was in the Harvard Law Review, right? So somebody emails me a summary of this. So this is how we could do literally whatever we wanted via like the Constitution even, right? So one, we can get rid of the filibuster, and then two, you get Congress to admit each one of Washington, D.C.'s 131 neighborhoods into the Constitution as individual states. And then three, the Democratic Congress passes a law with a simple majority to admit the 131 new states into the Union, and the Democratic President signs that into law. Four, D.C. is obviously overwhelmingly Democratic. Each new state will send Democratic senators and representatives to Congress. And then five, now with a supermajority in Congress and a 3/4 supermajority of states, Democrats can pass literally whatever new constitutional amendments we want. Like, all of that is 100% legal letter of the law, 100%. So, like, We could do something as crazy as that if we wanted to. And I'm sure that if you were to sit there and like look at the documents, you could find 50 trillion things just as wacky as that. That's what I mean when I say like if you don't want to play in with quote unquote good faith, like you could do whatever you want, really.
Sure, you could argue that's constitutional, but when we talk about wanting to return to a good faith liberal democratic framework, we're referring to not imposing like a one party state through turning every individual DC neighborhood into
yeah, that's fine. But the thing that you're talking about,
state. Yeah.
The thing that you're talking about,
we can acknowledge that would like destroy a republic, and
maybe.
that's what we're trying to avoid.
It could, but the thing that you're talking about would be playing within the rules.
It could. It would probably, definitely.
Well, sure, but I'm saying that that's following all the rules.
Yeah, but you could arguably follow the rules, but it still being like unhealthy for the republic in general.
I agree with you 100%. Okay, keep going.
Okay.
I don't even think you necessarily just go there. I wasn't saying that as an own. I'm just saying that like that's part of the thing that I try to stress is that like you can have people that are following the rules and everything, but you can still get to really, really, really bad places if people are not playing within. You're required to have a partner playing in good faith is what I mean. Like they have to be playing in good faith, otherwise no rule system. You can't reform your way out of crazy shit. It would just never be possible.
Sure,
Yeah.
but okay, if you're willing to contend with that, then you also have to acknowledge the fact that having it so that both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party operating in quote-unquote bad faith at the same time will probably do a lot of harm then.
Maybe,
right?
but it might be more harm.
Wait, why do you say maybe?
Well, because it might be that if one side thinks they can act in bad faith and the other side thinks that they will never act in bad faith, then the harm that would result from that is more than if both sides think the other side can operate in bad faith, because it would check their bad faith tendencies because they know that they're going to pay a massive price if they engage in some tomfoolery.
Okay, sure, but we can... If I were to say that if both were operating in bad faith, that would probably spiral towards the destruction of our nation, would you agree with that? Would you contend with that?
If that were to continue back and forth, yes, but I don't believe that would be the outcome. I think that the other side would check itself because they wouldn't want the entire because they wouldn't want the entire country and themselves to be destroyed.
But if they feel like they'll get destroyed anyway because the other side is operating in bad faith, and
but they won't get destroyed because the other side's operating in bad faith.
The only effective way to operate in order to gain power is for themselves to operate in bad faith. Then what incentive? So, I think MAGA is purely.
Wait. Let's not move on this. Let's not move on this. Right?
No. It's kind of related.
Well, kind of, but we can stay right on this, right? Just as a quick sanity check, okay? Or I say it's not sanity check. That's not fair. But as a quick thing, so you asked me if both sides are operating in bad faith, won't that spiral to the destruction of our country? If that continues indefinitely, yes. But I'm proposing there's a mechanism by which if one side sees the other side could fuck it really hard, that it's not going to do that, right? They would have some self-interested incentive for survival. So it wouldn't want that. But now I'm asking you, if one side feels like they can operate in bad faith indefinitely, and the other side feels like it has to operate in good faith always, does that not lead to the spiral destruction of our country?
Not if by operating in good faith you were able to sufficiently punish people operating in bad faith.
But that's that goes back to that foundational disagreement. I don't think you can do that.
But that goes back to the disagreement that you think that you cannot punish people operating in bad faith by operating in good faith. Yes.
Correct, yeah. But okay, go ahead.
Do you think that MAGA is influenced by attaining power purely?
When you say MAGA, what are you referring to there? Like the
MAGA movement, the people leading it, I guess, generally. Like Trump and his cronies.
Well, yeah, because I'm drawing a big distinction between like the voters, between like the MAGA Trump people.
Yeah, obviously the voters are different.
Like
the voters indulge
Rubio,
what Trump does, but Trump and his cronies are the ones like pushing forward.
Mm-hmm. And then so ask me that question again.
Do you think that MAGA, as in like the leaders, are influenced by the idea of gaining the most amount of power?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think by selectively punishing illiberalism, you can force MAGA, or the Republican Party in general, I guess, whatever you want to call it, to operate in good faith? Yes or no?
Kind of. It would more just be they probably just wouldn't participate.
What do you mean they wouldn't participate?
I think that if Donald Trump thought there were severe punishments for him, his family, his dynasty, for the behavior that he was acting in now, he just wouldn't act in that behavior. And maybe he just wouldn't even have interest in even being president. I don't know initially what he thought he was going to do as president. He probably would have ran the first time anyway because he's retarded. But in general, I think it would curb a lot of his behavior. But I think right now he's acting the way he is. It's because he feels like there's going to be zero consequences for every single thing he says and does.
Okay, sure. Do you think... So, you're familiar with the carrot and the stick, right?
Yeah,
Like
you
that
you
concept.
push and pull, like you
know.
incentivize some behavior by rewarding and you disincentivize other behavior by punishing.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of discussion about using the stick, basically, in order to create an incentive structure for the Republican Party to operate within a good faith manner again. The problem is that the operating in the good faith manner is getting them to stop using the stick themselves, if that makes any sense. I feel like you also need to provide a carrot. By providing a carrot, I don't necessarily mean like you bribe them, but more you demonstrate that operating within a liberal democratic framework is the most effective way to achieve political power. Thus, in a positive direction, they would want to move that way.
Yeah, but that's never going to be the case, right? Like, rules are literally there to constrain you because generally speaking, if you break one, you'll gain some unfair advantage. It's probably true of almost every game ever. Like, let's say a guy bought a second Monopoly board and brought all the extra money with him and was cheating in a game. Like, how can you incentivize the guy not to use fake Monopoly money? Well, I mean, you can. It's obviously that's a huge advantage. This is why you need, like, punishments and stuff. Because cheating is always going to be good to do. Cheating is literally
punishments, but then there's also, like, the incentive structure of obviously no one's going to be having fun if we're divulging ourselves into whoever has the most power is the one that's going to be achieving the most, getting the most like outcome. Right?
Well, I mean, you can if you believe the other side
is to avoid me going to my neighbor and I have a gun and he doesn't, so I take all the shit.
Well, yeah, but if you think the other guy's never gonna do the bad things you're doing, then you have a ton of incentive to act like that forever. Like, if I think I can cheat and the other guy's never going to cheat, well, then, yeah, you should just cheat all the time, right?
But you can... That's why you use the carrot and the stick. Like, you use the carrot as an incentive for operating within liberal democracy, and then you use the stick to punish them when they don't.
Sure, but whatever carrot you offer in a legal rule system is always going to be worse than the carrots offered by cheating, definitionally speaking. To prevent somebody from cheating...
But the carrot that you're offering... The carrot that you're offering is to operate outside of the rules. Like, you're reinforcing that. You understand that, right?
No, I don't. I think in a short term it might look like that, but I think right now...
You're using the...
I would argue that I would argue that your system is what incentivizes the operating outside of the rules because you know that you'll never really be held accountable for it. That's my whole argument.
No, but my argument is that by reinforcing the use of illiberal tactics, that is... By reinforcing the usage of illiberal tactics, you're encouraging the other side to keep doing that because you're just demonstrating that that is the best way to achieve your outcome.
To punish illiberal tactics, not that we should use illiberal tactics always, but that the other side will.
But you're not punishing all liberal tactics. I would agree with you if you punished all illiberal tactics using liberalism, then that would be like a disincentivizer. But you're only selectively punishing it. You're rewarding yourself through illiberalism.
I guess, okay, sorry. I'm trying not to jump around too many analogies, I guess. But like here, I guess this will be my last one, okay? I'm curious, okay? So you have a UFC fight. You're supposed to be fighting with hands. And you find out next time that the guy is going to bring a machete. And you feel like there's probably no way that you can win just like trying to punch through his machete, right? But let's say you tell that guy, well, fine, if you bring a machete, I'm going to bring a gun. Do you think that the guy shows up with his own gun? Or do you think the guy shows up and he's like, okay, fuck it, we'll just use our hands?
Well, if he was going to show up with a machete to begin with, and if the goal is for them to, like, I guess, kill your opponent, then by showing up with a gun, I don't see why they wouldn't show up with, like, let's say you show up with a pistol, I don't see why they wouldn't show up with, like, an AR. Because you're just continue escalation with no off-ramp.
Okay, but why would they not just say, like, or why wouldn't there be an incentive for them to just say, like, okay, fine, like, I'm just going to show up with my hands, and we just fight like we were supposed to? Rather than trying to bring an even bigger gun where, like, the risk as soon as we introduce guns is that people are going to obviously start dying.
Well, to follow the analogy, you would... I guess you would give the ref a gun, I guess. And
Well, no, we
tell
don't have
them
a ref.
to
We don't have
put the
refs,
fucking
obviously,
machete
because
down
we
in order
unfortunately
so that people
that would-
start
the system would run itself.
using their fists again.
But well, if we had a ref to appeal to, then we wouldn't have an issue here, right? Because we are the ref in this as well. But I guess like because in your world, I'm trying to understand, like they're gonna bring their machete, but you're saying like we should create such a cool way of like fist fighting that that nobody wants to
It's
bring
not
a
really
machete
a
anymore.
cool way. You have to create an understanding that, like, if the goal is to win, like, you have to bring them to an understanding that if they don't want to die themselves, it's ideal for both people to operating with fists instead of both people operating with guns.
Yeah.
I guess.
Wait. Yeah, I agree. But I feel like the only way that you would not
That's
bring
the
the
positive
machete.
incentive structure that you need to be encouraging, though. But you aren't doing that.
Yeah, but how do you get them to not bring a machete unless they think you're going to bring something bigger next time? Like, how do you incentivize them to fight with their fists? How do we do this?
Well, you say that there's no reps to appeal to.
No, we
in
can't have
this
refs to appeal to
scenario.
because if we just had a ruler to appeal to, then this would be very easy, right? But obviously we don't have refs to appeal to because these are the people who are making the rules.
Well, yeah, well, that kind of makes the analogy wrong. I
No, it
guess,
makes it 1-to-1.
because
There are no refs we can
are-
appeal to. We are the government. We are-
There's no inability to create a ref, I guess, in real life. So that's kind of where the analogy kind of falls apart.
Wait, no, wait.
Falls
No,
apart.
wait. No. Adding a ref destroys the analogy. We don't have refs right now because we're making the rules and enforcing the rules as well. That's what the government does. There are no refs in real life, right? It's just us doing the rules, right?
No, I guess like there are rules.
Who's
that
the
we
ref between
operate
the
in as
Democrats and the
society.
Republicans? If the Democrats and the Republicans all show up to fight each other, who's the referee that they can appeal to?
Well, the referee would be the law and the judiciary, assumingly.
But it's all ran by either the Republicans or the Democrats.
Well, if it's not codified, then yeah, and that's the world view that you're operating in is that nothing is codified. If there is something like codified, then you can appeal to it.
Well, no, let's say we can have it codified. Okay, it's in the rule book that you're supposed to fight with your fists and not bring any weapons. But like if they bring weapons,
Well, then you can make it so that in the rulebook, you're allowed to bring an AR-15 with you if they bring a gun.
okay, I feel like we're back at this. Either
Yes,
I'm
we're
really
back at the
bad.
thing in which we
I'm either really bad at
I think
communicating this, or
we
well,
need
hold
to
on, wait.
resolve this. Yes.
Something is happening where I think that I feel like for some reason a bunch of people that are on the other side of this argument from me, and I'm not saying I'm necessarily 100% correct, but I know I am correct on this, in that you guys seem to think that the other side is either not really violating the rules that much, or you can seduce them into playing by the rules by. I actually don't know what the proposed mechanic even is. Why would anybody ever want to perform in good faith when there's so much more reward for performing in bad faith? Definitionally, like nobody cheats. Like imagine somebody comes to my house to play Arc Raiders and like, bro, why do you have like Parkinson's on your character? It's like, oh, I downloaded a sick hack that simulates Michael J. Fox. Like, why the fuck would you cheat that way? You're making the game harder for yourself, right? Everybody cheats and violates norms and rules because they think it gives them some advantage, and it usually does. That's why we have rules here to constrain behavior. So I don't know how you could possibly incentivize somebody away from bad faith acting, other than the fear that, well, fuck, the other guy might like act in bad faith too, and now we're actually going to race to the bottom. We're completely fucked. But if the other side, if you know they're always going to be constrained by the rule book no matter what, then you have so much flexibility to do crazy shit if you want to act in bad faith. I don't know how you resolve this by just saying, what is the incentive structure to get the other side not to perform in bad faith? I don't understand.
Well, the incentive structure, which is what we talked about before, is you create a deterrence through the law, I guess.
So what could have deterred... Okay, I guess maybe we can just try to go to the particular, suggestions, or... Because I don't feel like you can ever deter that type of behavior. But I guess it's fundamental, I guess. Yeah, I just feel like that behavior is never...
Well, like as I said, one of the major things that I feel like encourages the bad behavior that we're currently seeing in office is the fact that there's so much presidential immunity, and we already kind of talked about this before. Is that even if there are... Because on top of the fact that they're operating in bad faith when it comes to the Constitution, they're also just breaking laws, like corruption laws, and arguably like the crypto stuff is probably breaking some sort of commodity law. Would you disagree on that?
I actually don't know, because I know they've
Like the
changed a lot
accepting
of
of like
the...
the Qatari jet is
that really
probably
breaking
breaking
up-
some sort of like corruption law.
Is it?
Bribery? I would assume so, yeah.
Okay. I don't know, actually. My guess, when it comes to stuff like this, there's probably like huge latitude in terms of like what the president acting as the president can accept or not. My guess is my guess is very little of the behavior of the current administration is probably definitionally illegal. That'd be my guess. Or criminal in
Do you think
behavior.
like them violating the ECA, they couldn't be prosecuted for that?
Well, technically they didn't, right? Because Pence didn't go along with it.
What do you mean? Oh, they tried to violate it. It's conspiracy to violate the ECA, right? Wouldn't that be what they would be charged for?
That would theoretically, that could be a crime conspiracy. Yeah, they had a plan to it and they took one step towards the behavior. I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are things that you can do. I think I might generally agree that I don't know. I don't know any reforms you could make to the system or to the Constitution to punish people operating in bad faith with like in the context of the law. But when it comes to people indulging in like criminal action, usually if they're going to be operating in like bad faith and breaking our Constitution, at the same time they're also going to be doing like illegal actions as well that you can punish them for.
Sometimes.
Like,
yeah. I mean, if we can, I think we should punish where we can for sure.
Then is that not enough, or do you also want what is your?
Well, I mean, in
primary
terms, if
focus?
you want to talk about this, like by the end of this administration, Trump might do mass pardons for literally everybody, right? So if we're going to talk about just criminal stuff
I
federally,
agree.
then they're all beyond reach if we want to do that, right? So now we're like, future
I
laws
agree.
and this whole administration walks on that.
And that's where we get into like the reforms. Like I think you could introduce an amendment to just undo all the Trump pardons for his all of his shit.
Would that not
I've
count
also-
as like
I've talked to-
or go on.
I was gonna say, and I know Pisco has. I talked to him briefly about this. I don't agree with it, but it's probably technically legal that you could declare Trump mentally incompetent for like his entire administration. And
Probably, yeah.
Yeah,
I would
he
argue
was,
that's
like,
a
not
bad
operating
faith
within, like-
usage of the law, but I would be.
I agree, it is a bad faith usage,
Yeah,
but
I'd be for
I
it.
think it is something you could do.
Yeah,
if
they
you
tried
were
to do that
desperate.
with Biden, right? That was what the whole auto pen thing was.
Yeah, they did, and they failed to. And I kind of want to get into that as well. Specifically, like advocating for certain, like the usage of your rhetoric. Let's see, we still have an hour left, right, till that other person comes in.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, prescriptions. Where was it in my notes? I think you should be able to create federal corruption laws that are not pardonable. I think that would be something good for reforming the system. So basically, let's say Donald Trump and I don't know, Pam Bondi decide to steal Kentucky's election result data. Arguably, that is illegal. Would you say?
What's happening right now with the election data? No. Or are you proposing a new thing where they just like walk in themselves and steal it?
Yeah, they just walk in, steal it, no warrant, no nothing. They just go in.
Oh yeah, that would. I imagine that'd be illegal. Yeah.
Like just them operating in an illegal manner in regards to like corruption or like stealing, or by corruption I mean like accepting bribes, cooperating with like foreign states against like
Yeah. We'll just say like a clearly,
in-
obviously illegal thing. Yeah.
Yeah, clearly. I think that there's certain corruption laws you could create that are not pardonable, specifically in regards to people operating within Congress and within, like, the presidency, and you could just prosecute them after the fact. I think that would be a good deterrence that you could create to prevent that bad faith behavior in the future. And then another thing, which I think would prevent Trump term 2, what is that Supreme Court decision? You should be familiar with this. The one in which they said that they couldn't remove Trump off the ballot, even though he committed insurrection, because it's Congress is the only one able to do it.
It's like Trump v. Not Richardson, or I don't fucking know. But I'm familiar. It was the Colorado. It was a big game.
I think
That was the immunity case,
this
right?
is something you could do without even introducing an amendment. This is just appealing to the 14th Amendment. I think Congress should have the ability, with a majority vote, to divulge that power to the judiciary and just let them prosecute people who commit insurrection and prevent them from holding office in the future. And probably also alongside jail time as well. Would you disagree with that, or do you think that's like not legally?
Do you think it's kind of
possible?
weird to make laws that would have to be enforced by the executive? If it's an executive who's thinking about breaking these laws in order to win an election, therefore avoiding all enforcement?
Yes, but I think we agreed at the very beginning of this conversation that there is no way to be able to punish an executive while they're currently like in office. Anything that will have to happen will probably have to be after the fact that they've like left office, or they're like after impeachments, I guess. Like because we want our executives to be able to operate within a good faith manner.
Good faith is the operative phrase there, yeah.
And like if you know, we don't want a president to fear being able to protect individual citizens of the United States for like ever invaded or something like that, right?
I understand what you're saying there. This is the Roberts argument for criminal immunity, but I think we do want a president who's afraid of being a criminal. I think that would be good, right?
Well, yes, that's what I said before about, narrowing what it means to do official presidential actions and the immunity involved with that.
I don't think
Like,
I think all that. I
the way they
don't know how
understand it,
you
like,
do
they-
it legally.
they-
Like that whole ruling
They
should just
took
be
the
tossed.
presidential like immunity decision and they applied it to documents related to January 6th. I believe that there should be a way to narrow that, to allow those documents to be like usable against the president of the United States.
Okay, you would have to
Am I
overrule like a
misremembering
Supreme
that, or-
Court decision basically in order to do that.
Well, that would require an amendment probably, or if you wanted to, you could just pack the Supreme Court, I guess. But you want to do that anyway, so
Kind of, not necessarily, but kind of, sort of, yeah.
okay. And then yeah, if you just force the president to divest themselves, and if they don't, then I don't know, make that grounds for like a civil majority impeachment, I guess.
I'm not sure about that. I've thought about that, but I don't even know if it applies in American politics anymore, since these people always have access to so much wealth anyway. Because I guess like the idea is like, what if a brave farmer wants to run for president, and now in order to be president, he has to give up his whole family's peanut farm or some bullshit in order to be president? Like maybe that would be shitty.
Well, you don't give it up. You just
Or divest
it,
actually just means that
I guess.
does that mean somebody else runs it for you, or does that mean that you have no?
I believe so. Yeah, like you could probably create some sort of federal agency that would be in charge
That
of
would
like
do it?
running it.
Sure,
Or maybe
maybe.
not federal, but yeah, just some sort of agency that the president doesn't have direct control over.
Yeah, sure, maybe. Yeah.
And then this is sort of a thing. I don't know how it would necessarily be applied. This is sort of me spitballing it when I was trying to do prep for this conversation yesterday. It's a dereliction of duty amendment. So basically, I was wondering if there was a way to, if the president is supposed to be upholding some sort of duty or action and intentionally decides not to do that, if there's any way to like do like some sort of soft punishment on the president.
Well, aren't we literally just?
I don't know how that'd be enforced though, or how that'd be defined.
Yeah, like we
either.
would all be like whatever the arguments over this would be the same arguments we'd be having over whether or not the president is committing a criminal act, or whether or not we're being a liberal. Like because what you're saying in terms of like being able to hold a president accountable for not upholding a good faith, whatever the rule of law, he'll just say that, well, now this is preventing me from acting vigorously the same way that a criminal statute would if I didn't have presidential immunity, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's more of a spitball, not really an official prescription that I would recommend.
Sure.
Do you think any of these prescriptions at all would be like useful as like a future deterrent for a president operating at least in bad faith with the current laws that exist?
No, but I
books.
think they're good laws though. Like I think these I don't know if there's anything I necessarily disagree with. I just don't think that if somebody really wants to get around the rules, I'm not sure that any of these would prevent somebody from doing that.
Well, in the moment, no, but because all of this is meant to be done in the future.
Well, in the future, I don't think. I think they would just
Actually,
try to find ways around these particular laws or these particular things that you're stating, and then it would just be a new set of things that we would try to reform against.
Sure, but that's just like how democracy works in general, right? And how governments worked in like all of history. Like,
I disagree. Trying to create better laws and a better structure, I think, is different than constantly trying to make rules for people that are constantly trying to break the rules.
why is there differentiation there?
Because I think one party is acting in good faith with adherence to the rule structure, and they're trying to maximize the advantage they have, and the other side is constantly trying to break the rule set. And the types of rules that you would make for these things, like, I think one is a fun...
But that's how it's always been in like all of human history. You understand that, right?
I disagree. I think the vast majority of law is created with the understanding that people are generally going to follow the law, and people are generally going to like try to stay within the bounds of the system as it exists, right? And then if there are loopholes, we patch
What I
them.
mean is there will always be actors that will always be attempting to try to break the system, and we recognize that. And as we move forward in the future, we will continue. It's like the constant battle of trying to create a more perfect system.
Sure, I agree with that, and to some extent that might be impossible to get rid of, but I think it's a bit different when it's like members of government that are doing it. So like for criminal stuff, we can speak so much to state of mind and everything for criminal actions. Like if I drop a knife off a building, it's not enough for me to tell the judge, well, I didn't stab him, I dropped it, ha ha ha, because the judge's gonna be like, you fucking obviously are trying to kill somebody, this isn't okay. When you're talking about the people that are making the rules and playing within the rule book while they're making the rules, like, I guess holding an executive accountable is so much different. The person who's supposed to be enforcing the law is so much different than just like a citizen, I guess. Like the people at the top are, yeah, the enforcer. It's really the executive, right? This is why we used to have that term. We don't use it anymore, but the constitutional crisis thing used to come up so much. What do we do when the executive is acting in bad faith? Like it's said to be a crisis because there's really nothing you can do. You can try to make rules in the future, but like who's to keep any future guy from just acting in bad faith again?
But that's the same argument that can be applied against you. Is the use of force in the future is never going to be a perfect disincentivizer from operating in bad faith.
I think it heavily disincentivize it, but I'm okay with that. If somebody's like, well, if you guys were to do this, then we would, do this. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Then then none of us will do this. That's fine. I'm totally okay with that.
It's just that the system that you're proposing has no off-ramp besides an assumption that these people are going to learn their lesson. And
I think that's a good assumption, though. I argue that your system has no off-ramp. I think we've been on the ramp to death for the past like 30 years, and I don't see an off-ramp by playing nice again. Like Biden was the nicest president you could possibly get after Trump, who's like the most disgusting person you could possibly get, and it seems like that did literally nothing. And now we've accelerated. I don't know what president you could have gotten that was nicer than Biden.
That would be arguing with the lack of using. Like we agree that using a stick is necessary in order to prevent bad faith actors from operating.
Yeah, but what was the stick? We had 34 felony.
Too nice was.
We had felony charges and convictions in New York State. We had a special prosecutor. We had a special counsel, Jack Smith. He got strung up by Eileen Cannon in Florida, and then we just didn't have enough time, I guess, because of the Supreme Court kicking stuff down the road for the J6 stuff. I mean, like, what else?
We can recognize that was the system working as intended. It just wasn't fast enough.
Sure, but then that's the system. Like, what, are you going to speed up criminal prosecutions? Are you going to speed up investigations so they're more sloppy? Are you going to overrule federal judges? Are you going to... Did the Supreme Court basically say that definitively there could be no criminal prosecution until the J6 committee was like done? No, but I think the presidential immunity decision, that criminal immunity thing, that kicked back the Jack Smith indictment, right? That kicked back the what was the process here? This was Trump v. Anderson. Why was it Anderson? Wait, that was just for the Colorado thing? No, this was Trump v. United States, I think. Sorry. Yes. So the Supreme Court kicked back the indictment that was this was the end of 2023, and they kicked back that indictment, so now they had to redo it and then get a new indictment because of the whole criminal immunity shit. Theoretically, this is going to change the entire way that Jack Smith would have to restructure the entire case, maybe. So, I mean... you're kind of fucked, right? Like,
yeah. What was the timeline for how many months or years did it kick it back for the indictments?
Well, it doesn't really matter because you're getting into a scenario where I don't know if Well, like if you're in 2024, you've got the election spinning up. The election season is upon us. I don't even know what the policies and procedures in the DOJ are allowed to be for pursuing charges against a guy running for office, and like just the whole clusterfuck scenario of all of that. You're just kind of fucked at that point, because I think generally policy for our executive agencies is you don't want to be doing things to mess with an upcoming election, even though Comey fucked all that up. Yeah, I just don't. The biggest criticism that like I give and other people give, and I don't actually know how fair it is that Garland should have appointed Jack Smith on day one or faster, but maybe that would have been seen as improper or something. I think that, I mean,
Could they have indicted him on, like, because obviously there's a difference between an indictment and like a formal
an indictment on day one? Right? No, probably not. No.
Wouldn't you just need like a grand jury, and then grand jury says yes, and then they go to the indictment, and then the actual prosecution can happen later.
Well, but you have to show evidence to the grand jury.
Circumstances.
You have to show evidence to the grand jury for an indictment. Like, that's what the grand jury.
Well, maybe not day one, but you could gather that, I would assume, within at least the first month or two, maybe even 3 months of investigation.
Yeah.
And still have
you could
3 years.
But ideally, ideally for the federal government, if you're bringing an indictment, it's because you're confident that you can chase this case down beyond a reasonable doubt. Like, you don't want to just get the probable cause standard met for the indictment that you're issuing. You want to know that, like, I'll win this case in court, not issue an indictment, secure the indictment, and then start doing all of your research. Especially because I don't know how long the prosecution is allowed to delay trial. Because if you know that, like, they're indicting you immediately because they're trying to get an indictment, and you push to have the trial as quickly as possible, they might not even have time to build that investigation. And I don't know what the.
But you're saying that the people that are operating in bad faith already know that they're going to be attempted to be punished for this, right? So, they would them knowing whether they're going to be indicted or not doesn't really matter. They have to be operating with the mindset that they will inevitably be indicted.
Well, no, my assumption is that these people don't think they'll ever be punished for what they're doing. That's why Trump acted the way that he did.
Sure. I would argue that they thought that they couldn't be punished for it. Wait, do you think because they knew that there would be like a presidential immunity decision in the future? Or
no, they just figured he was going to be president. He could just dismiss everything. He doesn't give a fuck about any of the rules, basically. Yeah.
Oh, you mean like in the moment during January 6th, he thought he would become president second term, and then he would be punished for it.
Sure,
That's
yeah.
what you mean.
Or that, like, their campaign in 2024, he was campaigning for his life there because he thought that if he lost, he was going to get criminally fucked. So he knew he had to win that election.
Yes, but then with the system not working as is, or as effective as it should have been.
I mean, I think it was. I don't know what more they could have done.
Lawless behavior.
Right? I don't know what more they could have done in 4 years. It's a very ambitious case. It's a very crazy set of behaviors from the president.
Yeah, it was very crazy case, very ambitious. I just feel like even if you gave it like a year of investigation, I'm surely you could have come up with something in a year in order to be indictable. Like, does it really take that long in order to like redo everything, or to like come up with a case in order to prosecute them for this? Was it that complicated? I don't think it was.
I mean, this is a big criminal thing, and I don't know how many roadblocks people are throwing up every step of the way. So, like, if you're subpoenaing for records, you're going to have to go to a judge. You're going to get this off with a subpoena. You might have other people that are throwing up roadblocks saying, you know, like, well, I don't think I should have to turn these over, so you would challenge this in a court hearing. Or, the process and procedure on such a sprawling investigation might be quite large, such that it would take you a couple of years to really have a case strong enough that you feel, like, confident. But maybe not. Maybe I'm saying this maybe. Like, maybe there is a way they could have literally rushed it. But also, you got to be real careful, because that's like, you don't want to fuck that one up, right? Like, imagine Jack Smith managed to, rush through it and get the indictments out quicker and then get it to trial, but like they just missed stuff, or they had stuff that they could have had lined up better, but they just didn't, and then Trump like actually wins in court partially because of how sloppily the investigation was ran. Like, that's a rough one, I don't know if you want them thinking they're on like on a fucking
that would be very rough, because then that would give them like, oh, Trump did nothing wrong, he won in court.
Yeah, exactly.
That is something to think about.
I guess I just don't know, like, what are reforms, or what are things you think we could have passed reasonably? And when I say reasonably, I'll say with, what are things that we could have passed, like, that like would have made sense publicly prior to Trump taking office, that could have prevented Trump from doing the things that he did. When I say reasonably, what I mean is that, like, I don't know if anybody...
But wait, what do you mean specifically for the things that he did?
So, like, I don't think reasonably, I don't think anybody ever could have gotten on board with, like, we need to do something about the Electoral Count Act, right? Because this has just never, ever, ever been thought to be violatable, like, ever. Like, nobody thought that. It's like, what are things that could have been passed in Obama's time that could have inhibited Trump's first term's behavior?
I think you could have had a bipartisan effort to, I guess, define what it means for criminal immunity for, like, the president of the United States, because you could argue that you could sell it to both parties. You'd say, oh, we don't want to have another Bush come in and do an illegal war, and we want to be able to, like, prosecute them for whatever reason. This is rhetorical appeal, obviously, not necessarily legal.
Yeah, but
legally sound.
I don't know if there would have been...
And you could also do the same thing with, like, the Republicans, because, you know, they fucking hated Obama.
Yeah, but
like,
I don't know if there would have been...
drone strike Obama.
I don't think there would have been an appetite among this for either the lawmakers or the population. And I don't want to retreat to just
Maybe
saying...
not at the time.
Yeah.
No,
I don't want to retreat just to
but-
saying that, like, well, in time, obviously, sure, but, like, you can make that argument for everything. But what I'm saying is that, like, that's almost a necessary condition, because the kinds of changes that you want to make to prevent the abuses in the future are almost always going to be retroactively in response to the things that have happened, right? So, like, when I try to think of reforms that I would make to prevent the next Trump from doing the Trump things that he's already done, I'm thinking of all the things he's already done, but then by the time I make those reforms, it's too late. And to try to prevent future abuses, I would have to be able to convince the population that this is a thing that is abusable, so we need to do something about it, even if it hasn't been abused yet. So that's why I bring up the ECA example. Like, nobody in the public and no lawmaker is going to be like, oh shit, you're right, the ECA is abusable, we need to find a way to patch this, you know?
Well, I guess you can't, I guess. Well, I mean, I guess you can look at the rhetoric and see where they're trying to go and try to maybe reinforce it beforehand. Like, Donald Trump was already espouting election conspiracy theories beforehand, and maybe you could say that there was some sort of foresight.
Well, not before
individual politicians could have
the
made.
whole ECA plan. That came up that was like a Chesbrough invention. Like, nobody was talking about that type of shit beforehand, before Trump did it.
Well, yeah. But you're right that there is no way to be an oracle and look at the future and be able to create, like, the perfect reform that will prevent it from happening. Everything that we do
Well, that's my point.
in a sense, in response to what someone else does.
Well, sure. Wait.
I guess
that's my whole argument, though. I thought we disagreed on that point, because my argument before was there's no set of reforms
contention
you
is
could
whether
make.
that will destroy the republic if we operate like that. Which I
Okay.
would disagree.
Do you think that we could survive, like, another Trump tier president who's trying to be as bad faith as Trump is?
If we institute the right reforms afterwards, yes.
Like, I would argue that Trump has already done
Like, if
stuff.
we do nothing, I would agree with you that if we do nothing and just, like, let it keep happening, then of course that'll destroy a republic.
Well, but it's not
more
like-
of a matter of do you.
It's not like we regain everything once we patch it, right? So, like, the damage that Trump has done to trade, the deposing of Maduro, the regime change that's now happening in Iran, our relationships with everybody else around the world, diplomatically and economically. Like, these are things, like ongoing wars that we've either supported or not supported. Like, these are all damages that we can never reform away out of the damages. We might be able to change some particular behavior
But
from happening in the future,
your
but yeah.
system wouldn't reform that either. That's just, like, a matter of fact. You're just stating a description and with no solution.
I think that if Trump thought that if he was on some fuck shit, or if all the Republicans in Congress thought they were on some fuck shit, that Republicans would be more willing to impeach him, because they'd say, well, fuck, I don't want to be held as an insurrectionist and then not allowed to ever run for office again or criminalized for this behavior. I think there would be more checks than right now, where I feel like, largely speaking, every Republican lawmaker and Donald Trump and most people's administration, their feelings right now is there's just going to be no repercussions for what they've done, regardless of the rules on the rule book right now.
I think there can be a case in which repercussions are done in the sense that they've broken laws that could be prosecutable, and if you pass an amendment that would take away the pardons, I would agree that it would probably be harmful if you don't do a reform like that. But even if you don't punish them, like when we talk about creating a deterrence for the future, our goal is to, like, create fear that they will never operate outside of the norms and of, like, operating in bad faith again.
Well, but you can't make bad faith illegal, right? That's the issue.
No, you can't make bad faith illegal. We can only just respond to what they've done previously and make that illegal. And then as long as you signal that you're willing to prosecute that in the future, then that should be fine for addressing those things.
I mean, I understand, I guess. I understand your point. I guess I just disagree with that. I just don't know. Like, if everybody gets out right now scot-free, which it sounds like in your world, especially if Trump does the federal pardon, that's just all but guaranteed, right?
I'm not saying it's ideal, but I'm saying it can happen and won't destroy everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why the next time they're in power, they wouldn't be looking to similarly wild the fuck out, knowing that as long as they're not breaking any current
Well, how about
laws,
they get out of it in the future? If you take away the pardon and you take away like presidential immunity except for very broad like official actions or very narrow official actions. Sorry.
yeah, I mean, the goal would just be to find other
That's
ways.
like a major thing that's giving them comfort right now for being able to operate lawlessly.
Sure. I mean, one, we're assuming that we can get rid of the pardon, but I'll grant that. Let's say that we can. But I mean, they would just find other ways to, in bad faith, conduct themselves such that they can break and like bend the rules, I guess, to their whim to get some kind of political power. But I guess you feel like that people who are operating in bad faith with the law aren't really fundamentally different than just criminals. You think that these people are kind of sort of the same thing. But I feel like they're...
Yes, I think that if they're going to be operating in bad, like I don't think there'll ever be a president that tries to operate bad faith in regards to like the Constitution and also not being indulging in just like bribery and corruption and...
Yeah, but when they do that shit, they know it's illegal. Like the whole... I should research this more, but you know, like the whole Nixon Watergate thing, right? Like when he fucking fired everybody.
I'm familiar of the Nixon Watergate. People talk about the reforms that happened, and they said like the DOJ was like less independent.
Well, sure, but I'm saying
I'm not familiar.
when Nixon was president and he was engaged in all of the in all the dumb shit that he was doing, I think that he knew he was operating under the assumption that if he got caught, he was going to get fucked. Like that was his assumption. The whole like Black Saturday, the Saturday Night Massacre. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That whole ordeal was about him firing a bunch of people because he thought that there was I don't remember if he fired his attorney general or if he told his attorney general to fire a whole bunch of people at the DOJ who were like a special prosecutor and people that were trying to investigate him because his assumption was that he was going to get fucked, right?
Yeah, that was his assumption.
I don't think Donald Trump
and
has
then
that assumption.
he got pardoned,
because
and then
but that's
we
because,
recognized that the pardon created a negative incentive structure. Or a positive incentive structure for committing bad actions because he ultimately wasn't punished.
Well, no, but he was already disincentivized. He knew his behavior was illegal.
Yes, but then he knew his behavior was illegal. He thought it would be punished. He got pardoned for that. And now people in the future, there's your example right there. We could have appealed back to fucking Nixon and realized that the pardon power is an incentivizer for people acting lawlessly. Because even if...
No, but what I'm saying is the difference is that Nixon had to do this whole Saturday Night Massacre thing. Donald Trump doesn't have to do that. Donald Trump will just publicly say, Pam Bondi, fire all these people, get rid of them. Like when Biden came into office, wasn't there a special prosecutor holdover, or did he appoint one immediately related to Hunter Biden stuff? Am I making this up? Was it her that was a holdover from the Trump admin or something?
I would assume there will be a holdover between the presidencies.
No, well, for a special prosecutor, I think it was Biden. There was one. I believe there was one holdover. Somebody can go look up. I forgot the shit. But that was a special prosecutor. That if it was Donald Trump, Trump would have just fired the special prosecutor. He would have told the AG. He would have told Bondi, get rid of these people. There is no Saturday Night Massacre in Trump's world because Trump doesn't give a fuck about any of the norms or anything. Trump would just tell openly. He'll go on TV and he'll tell Pam Bondi, do all this horrible shit. Like that's it.
So yeah, but I think we can agree that there could be no reforms that could prevent that from happening while Trump is in office. Anything that happens has to be after the fact.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I just disagree with that, but I don't know how we would ever prove that.
Other than what could happen in using illiberal tactics while Trump is in office to prevent that from happening?
Well, while they're in power, I don't think there's much you can do, but once you get power back, you have to find a way to punish them.
Yeah, there's laws that you can use that are currently on the books to punish them for the illegal.
Yeah, but it's going to be weak sauce.
Maybe not for that specifically, but you can punish them for that.
Yeah, but it's just going to be super weak.
You can't punish them, I guess, in general.
Punch them or punish them?
Punish them. Sorry, you can punch them in Minecraft, obviously.
The Yeah, I guess I just don't think that it's going to be. I don't know. Like the things that you could like hold them accountable for would be things that are going to be much less than the crimes that we would actually want to hold them accountable for. So like if they actually had a bad bank transfer, it's not going to be as satisfying as like holding them accountable for trying to destroy the liberal order of the United States, you know?
Yeah, and then another thing is, generally, I would like to. Do you think we should be closing illiberal uses of power in our like system?
Clothing?
Closing, sorry.
Oh, closing.
Motherfucker, my mouth.
No, you're good. Closing illiberal uses
Like
of...
if we recognize that there's like a way to abuse the system in a unfaithful way, should we be like officially trying to close that power from being executed?
Yeah, to some extent, I think so, for sure.
Okay. Do you think by leaving the illiberal usage of power open for the future, because in order to create a deterrent, it has to be repeatable, do you think that might have like a negative impact on the system and can be used against you?
I'm never, ever, 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 ever. I think that when you say things like that, like, are you worried this might be used against you? I think that this is a statement that demonstrates that we are worlds apart in terms of how we view the situation. I'm not worried about that because I figure that's the world that I already live in. That's just a thing that's already happening. So I would never even consider that as a serious question. Like if Trump wanted to do something highly illiberal, Trump is going to do it, or they're going to find a way to do it. We've watched ICE murder American citizens now, or regardless, I guess, whatever you think about that. So I'm not really, I'm already thinking they're operating as maximally as they think that their powers are capable of operating at. Would be the first thing. And then the second...
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
That statement, they're operating at powers that they're capable at operating at that. Like we recognize that they're operating, using the powers that they are given.
No.
They're trying to abuse the system. So
No,
if
a lot
you
of it
were
is just,
to restrict
frankly...
that in like some sort of way, then they might be operating in a different manner.
No, a lot of the stuff they're doing is bluntly illegal, right? So like a lot of the deportations they've done are just flatly illegal. The Supreme Courts, it just takes a while for the courts to rule on it, but they eventually do. But they still reaped all the rewards from it. A lot of the tariff stuff, the tariff shit got shot down, but they've just found a different way to tariff now. So remember when the Supreme Court...
So we can hold on. We can get into this. So Donald Trump intentionally does all of this illegal bullshit in order to institute his agenda illiberally.
Yeah.
And you're also making the claim that through this illiberal tactic, it is the most effective way in order to get your agenda done.
Mine or his?
In general. For if either side were to do it, that would be the most effective way to get it done.
Oh, I guess something outside of the system, sure, yeah.
Why do you think that is? Because whenever Donald Trump operates in this illiberal manner, he's getting punished for it constantly.
How?
Well, the courts are fucking him over.
When you say fucking him over, wait. When you say, I don't know why everybody says this. You say the courts are fucking him over, right? If there was a law that said that I wasn't allowed to fuck a pillow, and then I fucked a pillow, but it was like a fucking shaped pillow for like 2 years, and then eventually a court was like, hey, that shaped pillow counts as a pillow, you're not allowed to fuck it. I get to fuck the pillow for 2 years. How am I punished there? I don't understand where the courts are punishing Trump. They've stolen over $250 billion
they're
in
being
taxes
punished
from tariffs.
electorally.
Well, they don't give a fuck about electoral. It's his last term. He doesn't care.
I think they do give a fuck electorally, at least to a
I don't think
certain
Trump
degree.
does. I don't think Trump and his cabinet do. They're here for one more term, and he's a lame duck president. If he was older, I would agree, because he would want to run for a third term, 1,000,000,000,000%. But I'm saying that like Trump got to do illegal things
emulating
for
his
years.
tactics, and ideally you would want the Democratic Party to keep winning for a large amount of time, correct?
Wait, say that again.
If we're talking about emulating his illiberal tactics in order to get your political agenda achieved,
Well, I wouldn't be trying to emulate his illiberal tactics, because any illiberal tactic that I would want to use would be for furthering or further entrenching kind of our liberal institutions. He's using it to attack them. I think there's a difference there. Remember, you guys were the ones, when I talk about conservatives, don't say this sure to me, right? Conservatives were always the ones who were, I heard this over and over again, the tree, I'm not endorsing violence, I don't endorse violence, the tree of liberty has to be watered with the blood of patriots, every blah, blah, blah. There's that quote, what's the other one? It's a citizen's duty to rise up against a tyrannical government. Men that trade peace for security don't deserve...
Like, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but that's in a system in which we are unable to, like, affect change democratically. The scenario that's given is a Gavin Newsom win with the Democrats taking Congress in 2028. So that's like fundamentally different. We can acknowledge that, right?
Maybe a little bit, but I don't know how much different that is. If
I
Donald
would do a
Trump,
little bit. I think that it's vastly different. Yes.
if Donald Trump has been able to achieve all sorts of amazing things through illegal actions, and then the courts kind of stop him, but it's kind of just too late, and then they lose that election and go to the next thing, is that like a big victory for liberalism?
I think it's a big victory for liberalism. If how should I say this? I think if the way to affect change through democratic means still exists, you shouldn't be at all advocating or divulging for like the usage of force or violence in order to achieve your means.
Sure.
You should
I mean, I think
continue to
these should
operate
be
within the
done.
liberal democratic system.
I think they should be done democratically. I just think they should be kind of illiberal. I think maybe be outside of our liberal system. But like, obviously, I would never say that we should do this if our like if the public can't support it. That's why my arguments are generally that we should be trying to win the support of the public for stuff like this. But I don't think like Newsom should come in and to the detriment, like if some idea that I have about retroactively punishing some crime is like it polls at like 3% by the time Newsom's in office. I don't think he should do that. I say, fuck it, we just lost that fight then, I guess.
But you're also maintaining. You've said before in your live stream that if this is not done, that a republic is basically over. Correct?
I think it's really, really, really bad. Yeah, but potentially, yeah, puts us on a, or at least gets us closer and closer to it. We move closer every day, or depending on who you ask, it's already over. But
I feel like a little bit different than the rhetoric that you were using previously. You were very dramatic before.
well, I mean, sure. I mean, realistically, it depends on what you mean by is the republic over, right? Like, when is a republic over, right? Generally, these
Like
things
when you
happen
cannot
in.
affect change, or when is a democracy over? I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, like it's over. Like it's like a
when
recession.
you cannot affect change through like votes. I guess.
Sure, kind of, yeah, but it's like a recession, right? You define these things retroactively. Like the moment if the democracy in the United States were to fail, you would never say that like, okay, well, this was the day that Trump blocked the election, so that's the day that democracy failed. If Trump were to find a way to block the midterms effectively from happening in like 3 states, if Trump were to find a way to block that, I think historians would say that the start of the fall of the republic, they might go all the way back to Gore v. Bush. That was the start of the fall of the end.
Jesus.
Or they might go back to maybe they would point
Well,
to
hold
things
on.
like-
Well, we can
yeah.
we can differentiate between like the start of the end and like the end of the republic. That's what I'm talking about. The end.
Well, yeah, sure, but I
Not
mean,
like
like
the start
these.
of the end.
Sure, but
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Then when I say it's over for us, what I should have said was it's the start of the over for us. I guess. I don't think there's much differentiation here, but
we only got 30 minutes left because you got to bring in Hutch's mod.
29
right?
minutes and ticking.
Oh my gosh! All right, let's quickly go over the prescriptions that you've previously given on your live stream. How they're kind of ambiguous, and because of their ambiguity, it is kind of radicalizing your community. So, Connor and Hutch have both tried to get you to like give prescriptions for like how to make everything better, and it feels like you're intentionally, maybe not intentionally. It feels like you're kind of dodging in a way. Like you said that it's arbitrary when it comes to like the usage of illiberal tactics.
Sure.
I believe that's like a quote that you used. Are you familiar with like when politicians don't commit to like a specific policy or like specific rhetoric? Like I'm an American and I love democracy. Like that doesn't really mean anything when they're running. They're trying to appeal to like a broad amount of people, and anyone can interpret what is being said through that rhetoric.
Sure.
I think that's kind of what is happening whenever you are giving prescriptions to your community about.
Sure. When
illiberal
I say
tactics.
I don't know how many more times I can say this, but like when I say that like I don't care particularly about the thing, is because the thing is arbitrary. Because if you decide to do the thing, we can figure out what the thing is. An example of the thing would be that email that I read you earlier about like submitting every single neighborhood in Washington D.C. into the United States Congress as its own state, and then passing amendments and Supreme Court backing from there. Because now we have 200 states in the Senate, and like 180 of them or whatever are fucking Democrat, right? That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
Like, so I'm saying like
yes.
if I were to sit through and pour through the Constitution or go through a bunch of Harvard Law articles, I'm sure I could find like 50 different like goofy, funny things like that and just do that. But that's what I'm saying. Like it's arbitrary, whatever. Like if you've decided you want to do the thing, you can find an infinite number of goofy things to do. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, yes, you're not wrong there. But when you are giving specific prescriptions, it's not necessarily like that. How should I? Hold on, I need to think of a way to okay, when you're operating within law, there is like specific text that you can refer to for like where the limitations are, how it should be applied, and then there's like I guess a higher authority like the Supreme Court that you can appeal to if there's any sort of like ambiguity in how the law is applied, and that's like a good thing. When we're talking about using illiberal tactics / unconstitutional tactics, whatever you want to call them, in order to get your political policy done, there's no line in the sand, as it were, to sort of appeal to or like limit your community.
Well, my
I feel like that's
community,
why
just to be clear,
we're
I'm not.
seeing,
Hold
like,
on,
a lot
wait,
of
real quick. I'm not
radicalism.
advocating for fucking like assassinations or whatever. I'm not advocating for illiberal, radical like legislative things or whatever, or maybe even executive actions. I'm not saying that like we have to go fucking shoot up schools or whatever white people do when they get guns.
Like I'm not saying that you're advocating for that specifically either, but do you remember that conversation you had with your Reddit mod?
Yes, Hobbit. Well, yeah, I understand. This is a different. This
Yeah.
is a different topic. I'm just saying that like radicalizing is a term that's usually used like in a negative context, and I agree that most of the time it's pretty negative. But like, I mean, in response to like a radical administration, like I don't know, maybe like radical action, not like violent action, but radical creative interpretations of legislation. Maybe that's required. You know, like the people that were doing sit-ins and everything for the civil rights marches. You know, they were radical people. Arguably, you could call them extremists or whatever. These are people that are fighting against the cultural status quo. They're fighting against like current law and everything else. I mean, like, and they're breaking the law doing it via civil disobedience. Like, this is pretty fairly radical. I think to some extent, like, I do want to foster some kind of radical thought in my audience because people need to understand that what's happening right now is not normal. If anything, I would say that a huge failing of the first 4 years of our media in the Trump environment, and some people caught this early on, but everybody kind of gave into it eventually, was we allowed Trump to kind of normalize just unfathomably insane behavior. And rather than having kind of like radical responses to it or seeing for how radical it was normalized. And then it just has become like part of the epic daily Trump memes where Trump is saying that Iran is shooting our Tomahawk missiles at their own grade schools. Like that's just like something is broken there.
Yeah, but when you were confronted about this in particular, and there was an appeal to like where's the line in the sand for like how your community should be acting, you've talked about before. It was very unsatisfying. Your response. You just said, "Oh yeah, it would be really bad if like there was a shooter that came out of my community." Like that's not like the line that I think people are really looking for.
What is the line
to
that
be
I don't want
drawn-
my people to be? I don't want anybody in my community to go murder anybody. I think that's a little bit extreme. But like, what line are you looking for? Like, if your response is like, "Well, I think that some of your audience is getting a little bit of a radical view of the U.S. government," good, they should be. I think that it's so funny because I remember Asmongold actually just explicitly said this on Twitch, which is a much softer platform. I'm trying to radicalize people. I want you guys to be radical or whatever. But his is for like literally for a fucking authoritarian single party state. He's trying to radicalize people towards. But yeah, when you say unsatisfying, like what is the answer you're looking for?
It can be interpreted that, like, it can be interpreted by people when you leave some ambiguity that they would be okay with, like, a single party authoritarian Democrat. By Democrat, I mean like the Democratic Party running things state, and they punish MAGA, and for like a decade they run things through authoritarian nature, and then you return back to liberal democracy at X amount of time. This is what I mean when like your prescriptions are arbitrary and your line of the sand is vague, and thus people can interpret things however they want.
What
Like
should
maybe
my-
they're not being
what should my
radicalized to the
line
point
of-
where
what should
they
my
want to
line-
like go out and kill people, but it might be to the point where they're saying like we need to temporarily divulge from democracy for a little bit, or if you're a Republican, you need to like be forced into a re-education camp for 5 years or something like that.
Sure. These are things that the Republicans have already said, by the way. When you say like we need to temporarily diverge from
I'm
democracy.
aware, yes,
Yeah.
but we criticize them for that.
So they don't give a fuck. Okay. Yeah, Trump has literally
I mean,
said.
I
how
would
many
prefer
times?
there to be at least some sort of distinction between like the two sides, besides outcomes that you
Yeah,
want
but
to
the
achieve,
distinction is what
assumingly.
the distinction is what they thrive on. That's what allows them to operate that way. We're going back to that fundamental disagreement again. The fact that they know that you're always constrained by some rule that they've decided to abandon is their biggest ally.
Okay, let's just establish a line in the sand right now. Like, what would you say to your community right now in specifics that they should not be advocating for, or where does the illiberalism end?
Well, I mean, my goal, we should have a strong Republican Party. I don't want people punishing, or I don't think there should be a push to punish like MAGA or like people that voted in a certain way. I think is probably too much. I think that punishing future Republicans or trying to destroy like the Republican Party completely is probably too much. But it's generally just holding the current administration and lawmakers are accountable, and then probably people related to the media. These are like the things that I'm generally harping on.
Appreciate it.
Well, but I don't think that's different than anything I've said in the past, no?
I don't know. I've been talking to people in like the Hutch disagreement Discord server and Connor as well, and people in your Discord, and a lot of scary vibes. I'll say that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Which is why I kind of want to, I need people to calm down a little bit, but like,
But like the calming down begins with you, which is why I was making this appeal to you.
Which I've already said and done publicly, which is more than you don't understand how upset it makes me to like have these conversations when the president of the United States is tweeting about executing people in Congress. Like it just feels like you're not aware. I understand that you're saying that. I'm just saying it's such a deeply, unbelievably crazy environment that I have to sit here and navigate through. Like, what is the responsible way for a rhetoric for my audience when I have the president tweeting about how he can break no laws and that he has the popular mandate to do anything, and that there are certain sitting members of Congress that we should be denaturalizing their citizenship of because he doesn't like them and shipping them back to Somalia, or that he should be executing. Like, that's just a crazy world. And I don't see any moral or virtue in pretending otherwise, that there's some like arbitrary rule book. And I say arbitrary because the other side, to them, they treat it as guidelines. If that, it's just a deeply unsatisfying. It's just that environment run into the future, like, is the destruction, in my mind, is the destruction of this country, more so than any reciprocity or tit for tat or anything that I would be advocating for. I think that easily puts us on a worse path for the other side to act like they can operate with such impunity.
When we're talking about moral or virtue in terms of like the usage of rhetoric, I guess, do you think that it's creating a positive or negative outcome by adopting this? Like, I understand you would say it makes your community feel good, but if your goal is to expand the Democratic base, I guess, do you think that is helping or hurting?
I thought about this a lot on my own. I think honestly, I think on my own it probably hurts a little bit. It would need to be something I would be more. I would have to have. There would need to be more people on board with it. But I mean, like, I think if more people were on board with it, I think it would help. And the example that I would point to there is Donald Trump. He got to do a whole ass insurrection and then won the next election. Did they do that by being nicer to the other side or by saying that they would play within the rules more? Or did he do that by promising to break all the rules, do whatever he could as president, be a 3-term president? How many times did he say he would be a dictator on day one? And then he won not only the election, he won the popular vote, right? So why are we acting like my rhetoric is so uniquely harmful?
Well, when we're talking about winning the election, and that's like changing the voter base. That's an entirely different conversation.
What? No, he won. I'm saying he won the election and the popular vote in 2024, right? By engaging in whatever rhetoric you think I engage in, it was that times 10.
Well, yes, but you're appealing to two different people, right?
It can't be that we're that fundamentally different. If so, then the democracy is already over. Then the project is done. If we have one side of lawless heathens...
Do you think that in the appealing of rhetoric and the usage, like saying that you want to be dictator on day one, you don't think that there's any difference? Or there should be any difference?
Between the voters? I don't think it should be that Republicans are all bloodthirsty animals that are hungry for violence, and the Democrats are like, well, guys, we got to chill out. I don't think that system, if the differences are that exaggerated, I don't think that's sustainable. But also, I don't think the differences are that
Well, I'm
great.
not necessarily saying that. It's more of a matter of, do you think just people won't vote for Democrats if you're using that rhetoric? I guess. Like, when Republicans use that rhetoric, they're rallying their base and they're appealing to a certain archetype. But if you adopt the exact same talking points, I guess, I feel like you just might end up hurting yourself more than what you're gaining.
No, I disagree. I think you'd be adopting the same. You'd be adopting the same style of rhetoric, but you would be adopting it for different policies. So I think that would be the difference. And I think that both sides, like the idea that Republicans actually love it when you dehumanize their opponents and when you attack them viciously, but Democrats don't, that's not true. I think this is like a fundamental human nature thing. There's never been like a crazy dictatorial rise to power built on radical empathy or whatever, right? I think like these are things that radicalize or they motivate something deep in the human spirit when it comes to fighting with, perceived political enemies, as sad as that is. All that to say that, like, if a person on our side were to find a way to, like, adapt Trump's popularity and rhetoric, that I don't think that Democrats would be like uniquely human and that they'd be like, oh my gosh, like this is horrible and terrible.
Do you think that there's people being, I guess, alienated by the Republican Party when they adopt this rhetoric that are running to the Democratic Party? Or
No, I don't think so. I think that some people would make that argument, but I think, I don't really know if I have a way to prove this, unfortunately. I think that people are they're feeling too many things that are impossible to mask, and as a result, they're starting to leave kind of the Trump movement, and he's losing popularity, but it's not because of his rhetoric. That's why we said my biggest fear for Trump term 2 is that he just doesn't do anything, and he just rides off of like the IRA and the infrastructure bill and everything else, and that he would get all the credit for anything that Biden passed. That was my biggest fear. But I think that right now, if the economy was doing super hot, if we were getting a ton of oil from Venezuela and the gas prices were low and inflation managed to go away or was reversed or whatever, I think that broadly speaking, I think he would still have the support of his base. I think so. But it's just been issue after issue after issue after issue that they're getting hammered on, that people are feeling the effects of. I don't think it's the bad rhetoric. People might say it, but I would say they're lying, or there's a revealed preference there, because the bad rhetoric didn't affect it before.
Well, the rhetoric issue would not necessarily be because of the second term. It's more of a matter of, I guess, a reshifting of. This would be like a first term reshifting, I guess.
I mean, Trump had brutal rhetoric. I mean, he was literally screaming like he had chancing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, though. I would say that him in his adoption of his brutal rhetoric appealed to certain people that, like, obviously after every time you have like new people running for the presidency, there's going to be a reshifting of the parties a little bit. Like some people will go from Democrat to Republican, some people go to Republican to Democrat. I'm making an argument that through his rhetoric, he was appealing to certain people that used to be Democrat, and they brought them to the Republican Party, and then alienated people in the Republican Party and brought them to the Democratic Party. By adopting the exact same rhetoric that he uses, that you might be hurting yourself.
No, I don't think there were major
creating
party
no
shifters or
differentiation
anything.
between the two parties.
No, I don't think there were big party shifting things happening. That's my understanding. I don't think that was the case.
I'm pretty sure there is. I looked into like statistics about this. I think there was, I forget what it was. There is a shift. Not like major, like 50% or anything like that, but it's noticeable.
I'm sure there were independents maybe that moved over that were motivated to go vote that weren't, like some single digit small percentage in the middle. But it wasn't.
Well,
like
I think the
reshuffling
specific thing that I
party.
was referencing was not independents. It was literally like Democrats becoming Republicans and Republicans becoming Democrats.
Was it Democrats becoming Republicans, or was it just like? Because keep in mind, you're comparing as well, like the historically huge outcomes from like Obama 1 and 2 as well, right? Like the Obama first and second term were I think the two before Biden Trump, I think were the like two largest elections in history, right? Like Obama was a massively popular person, so like any change afterwards might be exaggerated because of how popular Obama was. But I don't know. I guess I haven't seen.
Sure. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, as a counter argument.
I don't know. 14 minutes. Any other
14 minutes.
thoughts, feelings?
Trying to think of looking at my notes for. Let's see here now. Here. I can't really think of anything else to go over in the moment. Mr. Putin, got anything to say?
Yeah, Mootin.
Yeah,
here.
I get fucking triggered when people
Whoa.
come in
boy.
here who are Republicans who are like, "Oh, Steven, your
man.
rhetoric to your community, it's you're being dangerous." I don't give a fuck. Okay.
Whoa!
Trump is literally out there saying
man.
to protesters, "I want to
I
punch the guy in the
disavow. I
face." He's
disavow.
saying the Second Amendment people, okay, they need to do something about it.
Firing squad for Liz Cheney. There was that.
In 2021, he's saying if you guys don't fight like hell, we're gonna lose everything. He literally started a fucking riot in the Capitol. I just don't care. I just don't give a fuck. I don't know why you guys are all fucking crying about it. I hope you vote Dem. If you don't, then you should probably vote.org yourself.
Do you understand why I'm
Oh my
willing to
God!
work with the Democratic Party? Or
Disavow.
what?
Say again?
Sorry, I just had to.
Do you know
disavow.
why that I'm willing personally to like work with the Democratic Party as a Never Trumper?
No.
Okay. Well, the reason is it's not because I'm necessarily a shill for the Democratic Party. It's that I want to use the Democratic Party as a tool for punishing the populist element of the Republican Party.
Are you gonna vote Democrat?
Yes, assuming. Well, depends.
Assuming what?
Actually.
Why does it depend?
So
back 1 second.
if there is a principled conservative Republican candidate that runs in 28 for whatever reason and wins the primary, that Republican needs to win, in my opinion, because it needs to give a reinforcement that
Okay, I
engaging
don't know why
in
you're even on the stream. I don't
populism
care.
and
You are literally an enemy of the United States right now. If I'm not kidding,
Okay.
if you look at what Trump just did and what the fucking Republican Party just did, and you're like, well, hold on, maybe they'll be good this time. I don't give a
that's
fuck.
literally not what I'm saying.
That pretty much
motherfucker.
is literally what you just said. You
I
said
know,
a
that's not
principled
what
Republican.
I'm saying if there is a principled conservative Republican, that one needs to win in order to signal to the Republican Party that that should be like a future candidate type of candidate that we should run. But if there is a like fascist populist that is running as a Republican, that person should be crushed by the Democratic Party because I don't want to see that person winning.
The
goal is to
problem
create
is whoever
incentive
goes up
structures.
there, you're going to think they're a principled Republican who's on your side. I mean,
No.
we'll see. In 2 years from now, you're going to be voting Republican, and I'm going to be here laughing. It's
No.
simple as. What about in the midterms? Are you going to go vote Dem in the midterms?
In the midterms, I'm going to be voting for Thomas Matson, my local representative.
Okay, what about everybody else? Are you going to vote Dem down the line?
It depends on the candidate. I'll have to look at the individual candidate, motherfucker. I'm not going to vote purely off party lines. Voting purely
at
on
this
party
point,
lines
you
is what
should
led to the
vote
Republican
purely-
Party
At
to
this point, you literally
be
should
in
be
the
voting
bullshit
purely
in
on
which
party
we
lines.
in which we were willing to engage with candidates that were against conservative principles.
At this point, you literally should be voting on party lines in the midterms for a Democrat. Because what's happening in the current office is insane.
No, I will be voting for Thomas Massey, and I will also be voting for Rand Paul.
Well, Godspeed. You're not an ally. That's
yeah.
good to know, though.
Okay, well, have fun with that.
Cool. Anything else?
Look, if Marco Rubio or JD Vance run in 28, I think both of them probably should be crushed by Democrats.
What about JD Vance?
I said JD Vance.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said Rand Paul.
No, Rand Paul is who I said I would vote for in the midterms. If he's... Yes.
Okay.
I think I'm just going to head out then, if there's
All
nothing else to contribute.
Have a good one.
Yep, have a good day. Enemy, apparently.
Yep. Steve's way too nice. I don't know. I'm of the opinion if you have to waffle right now to think about like if you would vote Dem, yeah, you are complicit and evil. I don't know what to say. Who's Steve talking to next? He's debating Lakashia Jane, a renowned Nazi who just converted to Dems. Oh boy. To be fair, I think he meant that there's a 1% possibility that there would be a good Republican, not that he expects it. I don't give a shit. All of the Republicans in Congress right now are fucking complicit in this administration. They abso-fucking-lutely shouldn't be allowed to have the presidency again. It's insane to even think that. Trump appoints Erica Kirk to Air Force Board. I heard about that, yeah. Problem? What, you don't think a strong woman can be in a big role? Why are there so many people in stream disagreements? Fuck. Was it Destiny that disavowed you earlier? Well, he disavowed my messaging, yeah. Based.
Yo, Moot. You here?
Hello?
What's up?
Radiant, you're lighting up, but your mic isn't working.
Are you serious? Wrong, wait. No, you're lying. I can literally hear myself on stream.
But you checked, didn't you?
Yeah, I did check. Okay,
You
no,
fool.
but I came. Listen, have you guys heard of the game Marathon?
We're not playing that.
You gotta play. No, listen. I think you have way more fun. Okay, listen. Arc Raiders is like drained. Okay, like there's nothing to do in that game. Like it's literally been the same content since the game came out. Marathon
We're
is
not
so
playing
fun.
that.
I promise. Moot, you'd love the game. I really think you would. Like it's way more like in depth, like PvP wise, and like people talk and stuff.
We're not playing that.
Sorry, I
Just
just
trust
wanted
me,
to
alright?
talk about the debate. Because
I think Steve's about to be busy, but you can talk while he's not here.
okay, I just lit like a couple of minutes just to reflect on it because I think like it's a spectrum of kind of non-cooperation that's required, right? And you have to push people to say, well, okay, we need to cooperate a bit less here, right, and be a bit more abrasive in terms of with these far right parties and the one that you've got in power in the States. And when you get people to accept that, then you need to find that middle ground with people of how far do you go. And like the goofy
I'm good on middle
suggestion-
grounds. Nah, I don't need that.
No, but I mean, it is. We are talking about the middle ground, right? Because it could be really, really extreme what you could suggest, and we're not. No one's suggesting that, right? Like the goofy suggestion that Stephen made is the middle ground. The point is, we're not even approaching that, and it's the same thing in Europe. That it's not seen as serious a threat as it should be, and it's crazy in the States because you actually have it in power, right? But the middle ground is what we're suggesting, right? People are being too cautious, but that cautiousness is actually the most dangerous decision to make, to just follow the status quo and, try and stay to the letter of the law and, be very cooperative with Republicans. And I mean, I understand from a Republican perspective, right, that they're gonna, like this guy, I feel kind of sorry for him, right? Because he's in denial and he's like, yeah, maybe we regain the Republican Party. Like, no, the Republican Party needs to die and then come back again. What remains of it right now cannot be allowed to live, and this guy can't admit it to himself because he wants to pretend things are still as they are. There's been a phase change. Something dramatic has changed in America. Right, that's what I think Stephen means by like the death of the republic. It's like entering a very different phase, and the old rules don't apply anymore. And people just don't seem to be getting that. But I think it's.
I've
Sorry.
talked to him before. He's
me?
like
The previous guy, I think.
Oh,
yeah, the previous guy, North. I talked to him before. He's just like he's very attached to being a conservative, and he really, really wants or he sees the Republican Party as like the only conservative party, and he thinks if they're gone, like conservatism as in general will just die out. And that's the main reason why. He just really likes the label. But yeah. Anyway, yeah, I asked.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's bad intent, but like that gap will always be filled in politics. But the version Republican Party that exists now, you can't just let that continue. It has to die. And Republicans need to realize that, like Connor, for example. I've never heard Connor, waver on the fact that this Republican Party can't be voted for. Maybe he privately thinks so, but I never heard him say that.
Wow. Well, I see you bullied North out of here, Mooten. How does that make you feel?
He said he wouldn't vote blue no matter who, and that if there was a good Republican, he would vote them. So then that sent me.
That sent you.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think he's just in denial of how much it will take to change the Republicans.
No, I think he's gonna vote Republican in the next election. And
Damn, so much bad faith
gonna care.
accusation.
no, you're too nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you bring these people come in here and they just say a bunch of fucking retarded shit, and you're like, oh, okay, well, that's your opinion.
think he
No,
said-
they're fucking retarded.
I think you said much retarded shit. I feel like reforming an entire Republican Party would be a tall order.
I also don't think there's enough responsibility taken, and this is probably a difference actually in my politics with you, Destiny. But I think that the history of right-wing governance has also set the precedent for the extremism that we're seeing now.
Potentially, but I mean, like, damn, how old is that guy? Wasn't he like 22? Like, how
He's
much?
like 19. Yeah.
Is he 19? Oh,
Apparently,
okay, yeah.
someone said first year in college. So
So what am I? How much responsibility am I hoisting on his shoulders as an 18, 19-year-old?
Well, don't get involved then. Shrimp ass.
Damn.
I mean, he came in good faith, but he is in denial of like just what it's going to take, like the open heart surgery in the Republican Party. I mean, it would be a new Republican Party again. But the Tea Party took it over, and ever since then, it's been kind of inevitable what would happen with it.
True. We can bring it back to the Tea Party. That's when the Republic fell.
I think yeah, that was a big aspect of it actually.
My parents were Tea Partiers.
So were
And also,
mine,
and,
based.
and like what Bush did with like especially with the Iraq War. I mean, it was that wasn't good faith use of the military, and it cost the states huge amount of money. I mean, he's now outdone by Trump, but yeah, like you can't just trust anybody that's been anywhere near this administration. So who else is going to gain the reins of power in the Republican Party, or any of those people in the administration right now are anywhere near it? And then they say, I'm sorry, like I didn't understand what was going on behind closed doors, and Trump had his Epstein book still and was enjoying himself, and I didn't know about, like they make all these excuses. You just can't trust them. Once a liar has lied, even if they say that they're a liar, you can't trust what they're saying, right? And that's true with so much of the power brokers in the Republican Party now. You can't. No Republican should trust them anyway. They should be convinced to vote Democrat in the next election. On the other hand, this guy North, like he came in with good intent. Like I feel bad for him because he's lost his party, right? But he is still nevertheless wrong. And he's young, so fair enough.
I don't know what you mean by he lost his party. I don't think this guy ever. I mean, hasn't he been around since like Trump's been elected nonstop?
Basically, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but
So he's like
gonna,
he wants like a party that he never participated in, which is fine.
He likes Reagan Republicans.
So does your mom.
No, it's-
Oh!
True. Actually true.
I'm just waiting for Hutch to call me, guys.
Ooh.
Well, okay, real quick before I leave, Destiny, do you still believe that AI is like
I
stagnated?
believe that
and,
your
like,
mom is.
a
Nope, I
whole-
never said it's
it's a failed-
stagnated ever.
What? Wait, what? That's not according to the subreddit post I read.
Well, maybe you should actually see clips or videos of me talking about it rather than what the retards in the subreddit or some
Well,
reason review is.
I mean, it's like a 3-hour long combo. That's why I didn't want to like
Oh.
dive into it before.
I said I don't
figured it
feel
out.
like I don't think that LLMs are ever going to approximate like human thought. I think it has to be some kind of different model or whatever. That's all I've said. But even that opinion is like there's like a low confidence opinion I have right now, but because I just don't know.
Yeah, that's a really complex opinion.
Cool.
But okay, yeah. Well, I just wanted to talk to you about that. Maybe
Complex
sometime
for you,
later.
maybe.
Ooh.
I'll probably I'll go listen.
Oh,
Maybe for you. True.
got his ass.
You got me. You got me, Moot. I love you, Moot.
It would be nice if you could just be on people's Twitch streams without streaming on Twitch. Sure, it would be. Kind of weird that Twitch has that weird rule that I don't think any other platform on the internet has. But, you know, what are you going to do?
By the way, not to massage Dan's ego too much, but there is actually a study from last year about some statistical anomalies in the 2024 election that point towards possibly something going kind of wrong.
I think if it's that
and
one guy, the group or whatever, I think I talked to the guy who was behind this a while ago, and I had a few important questions that he needed to tease out, but I don't know if they've done the work on that yet. If it's the same guy, there was a big deal about it for a while, but...
From Michigan University, I think?
Yeah, people are saying I did. I spoke to the guy, I think, who was behind this, yeah.
Okay, because I mean the methods are pretty commonplace in analyzing election data, so it's not watertight evidence, but it's certainly suggestive, and it's then worth looking at how causally such a thing could be implemented. So
Sure.
it's definitely something that people should be a bit more aware of, I think.
Yeah.
Dan's never been wrong. Trimple.
I mean, I didn't mean to massage his ego because it's reasonably sized already, but
Damn.
anyway, that's all I had. But yeah, cool to talk again.
Yeah, I love you. Be careful.
Take care, man. Bye.
DGL.
Shut up. Got him. Wow, Moot the caller bully.
I
Really?
didn't even
Wow.
want it, but he brought me into it. He asked me my opinion.
And you were like, I'm just going to be a fucking stream bully now.
Well, what are you gonna do? When he said he wasn't gonna vote blue, that pissed me off.
Oh, so you would vote blue no matter who, even if Trump ran
Yes,
as a Democrat?
I don't care.
Got
If
him.
it's well,
Oh! Fucking got you know how quickly I fucking
if it was Jeffrey
destroyed?
Epstein, I'd fucking vote him in, and I'd
Really?
say, all right, well, don't give this guy an island. Let's see what he can do.
Wow. Somebody in chat is screaming at you. Please stop saying shrimple.
Hey, Triple Az? I'm not gonna.
No way. Would this guy come running up here? Try to fuck with me, right?
Do Collins while we wait? You got time?
No, he's supposed to be calling me as soon as this guy...
Bro, he's not gonna call you. They're all laughing at you in a secret Chase Dog Discord right now.
True. Hutch joined them. True. King.
Look at how he's waiting. That's what they're saying.
Yeah, for you.
Ooh.
Got him. Uh-oh. Who joined?
Oh, I just wanted to ask, do you think Radiant has stagnated?
Yes.
Okay. No, the real thing I wanted to ask about was that have you like added a boost to the entire stream or something in terms
Yep.
of gain? I'm sorry, it's an audio thing.
Yep, I
But,
boosted
like,
the whole
every
fucking thing
video
because
that you
everybody...
played-
Yeah.
Everything is clipping.
Good.
Like not
Nobody's
not
complaining
just
about
your
this but
microphone,
you.
but
They
like
all wanted it
everything.
louder. They wanted everything louder, so now everything is loud.
Okay, so it's intentional.
Yep.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. So you. Okay.
That's how we like it.
Yeah, sounds like shit. I
It's
agree.
kinda
It should,
horrible, but
apparently
I
it's
guess
literally
that's the-
impossible
that's
for
the-
people to change the volume on their computer, so now everything is just loud as fuck.
Probably.
Okay, because I wasn't sure, because like when I pulled the volume slider on both Kick and YouTube, like I don't know if like putting it off 100% is like the way you stream it, or if it has a built-in boost or something.
Don't know, don't care.
But
Everything
And
is
he's
loud
gonna
now.
do it again.
Everything. I need everything to be as loud as possible.
You know, turn it up
Okay.
more.
Maybe I might actually. Thank you. I'll think about that.
okay, yeah.
If they're asking about it, that means they couldn't tell. So it needs to even go louder. So we don't get
True,
questions.
actually. Yeah, if you were curious, then thank you. Shrimple ass, Moot. Shrimple ass.
Shrimple as.
You know, I think that's right. Like you probably want more people complaining before it's really settling in.
Good. Okay. Be careful.
Okay.
Bye.
All right. Bye bye.
I'm joining this Discord. Bye.
But